going on there, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but have a good night. We're back with another live stream for you guys. As it is the start of a new month, we are on a new theme for the movie reviews, and this month's theme is thriller / suspense. And if you didn't read the title for tonight's stream, tonight's movie will be Shutter Island, starring. This is one of my choice, and I really sparked something in Rob with this movie, and it's kind of a beautiful thing.
I went full nerd this time around. I think I've watched since because this is the first time I've watched the movie since I saw it in theaters back what was it, 2009? I believe.
You're probably right. Let me just check real fast. 2010.
2010.
Yeah, so 11 years ago.
And I ended up watching it like 3 or 4 times this weekend. This past week. So just I went full nerd.
Yes. Well, along with our normal review of the movie, we'll also be presenting, I dare say, an original theory about this movie that no one, at least in our research, has put forward. About this movie, particularly it all has to deal with perspective.
It really does.
It really does, and I'm thinking, yeah, which again is kind of like the kind of the theme of Shutter Island is kind of like perspectives, and what one perceives as true, another doesn't, and vice versa, and but I think this is a theory that that is more than plausible, and I think just adds to the greatness, or to a lesser extent the enjoyability of the movie.
Oh, this movie, you can watch it over and over and over again, and you can come away with it you can look at it from so many different angles, and you can have a different experience with it every time. It's really, this is a brilliant piece of cinema. And I'm looking forward to talking about it tonight.
Yeah. Yes, and of course we have our topics of discussion. We'll be discussing the various documentaries coming out via Netflix, and
Netflix,
also
Amazon, Disney Plus. I mean, there's been a slew of these like kind of documentaries that shouldn't exist, but they do.
Yeah, I mean, particularly about certain like public figures, and and some of these and the dubious natures of all of their notoriety.
Yeah, dubious is a very kind term.
Yes, I know. As well as a little Schadenfreude with the Alec Baldwin incident. Not necessarily dealing with the incident itself, but kind of the PR nightmare that that he and his fake Spanish wife are concocting for themselves.
I keep forgetting that's
I know. I will continue to point that out at as long as we're talking about it. I will always point that out, that he has a fake Spanish wife.
Oh man, I totally forgot about. I always forget about that.
Yeah. How you say English cucumber.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean, while we're on that topic, this is a little of a side, but I don't know how many of you out there are familiar with this kind of pseudo-intellectual Ibram X. Kendi.
Oh, pseudo-intellectual is also a very kind term.
Yeah. I mean,
is like
again, I'm being diplomatic. If I was to be honest, I call him huge moron.
Yeah.
But
we'll be diplomatic.
But tonight we'll be diplomatic, and pseudo-intellectual Ibram X. Kendi, whose name is like some like really basic ass name, like Marcus something or other,
Yeah.
But anyways, he put out a tweet basically debunking his entire premise of how this is a
I
white,
thought
this
that
is a
about
white
this too.
supremacist country, and the system is created for the benefit of white people only, completely excluding completely excluding the success of other minority groups, such as Asians, who, what is it? I think Indians make the most, and then followed by Japanese and Koreans.
Dude, Asians are kicking ass in this
Asians are
country.
kicking ass. We're too busy kicking ass to worry about stupid shit. But yeah, he put out a tweet like talking about like, oh, so many, why is the rate of white people claiming to be of different ethnicities on the rise and blah blah blah. But for some reason, it's deleted now. But for some reason, he put that up there thinking that was like some sort of slam dunk. But it ended up being a self-owned because it refutes his entire thesis for his entire body of work. Because like if the system is built to benefit white people only, then
Yeah.
why are they pretending to be other ethnicities for ostensibly for the credit?
Oh yeah, the Rachel Dolezal. You have Sean King. Although that
Malcolm
hasn't been
X.
proven, but like, come on,
I
guys.
know, it's like, come on, bro.
Alec Baldwin's wife.
Alex Baldwin, dude. There's been smaller instances of that too. Like I remember some professor in like New York or something. She came
Hmm.
out, admitting that
Forget her name.
she's white or like Jewish or something, but she pretended to be Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I forget her name. I remember that
Yeah,
story.
yeah. It was like
Warren.
it kind of got lost. It kind of got lost in all of the dust up or the fallout from the Rachel Dolezal and stuff.
Yeah, Elizabeth
Um,
Warren's another one.
yeah, I mean she might be the biggest,
Yeah,
in that
I mean,
whole
her
like
and Dolezal are the most famous cases of that, where it's just
oh yeah,
like,
Whoopi Goldberg, yeah.
oh,
But
Whoopi.
yeah, it's just it's so hilarious. Like it's like if yeah, because if Ibram X. Kendi's theory is correct, why would all these white people or non-ethnic people claim ethnic status if it's such as that joke from what's his face Louis C.K. He had that joke saying like, yeah, if reincarnation was a thing, and I was able to come back as any race I want, it's like, yeah, I tick off white again.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's like
right. Okay, fine. It was
yeah,
a fun, it was a funny
yeah.
joke.
So if his theory was correct, then why are there so many cases of people pretending to be or being or of a certain ethnic uh, group? Why is it on the uptick? Why is reports or stories of people coming out or being revealed to be not of a specific ethnic group on the rise? And if this entire system was made only for the benefit of the white race.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, it was a big cell phone, but of course they took it down because like, fuck, they got me on that one. It's,
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
said, it's a cowardly thing. It's like it'd be fine if like, hey, you know what, I've been talking about this, and like, that's actually a good point. I hadn't considered that. Honestly, I'd respect the guy. It's like, I don't agree with him on anything, but like, I can respect someone that's like, sees something, sees like, at least some examples. Like, yeah, that's a little bit of a case. Like, I don't know why they would do that, or like, I was wrong. There are, maybe it's not quite so bad as I present it, but that's not where his money's made. So of course he's gonna hide and um, cower away from that. It's the same thing with guys like another overrated um, race baiter in Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like, it's just like, that guy's
mm,
writing. He is so. I've read some of his stuff, and I'm just like, oh god, I really just want to die. It's just like, not because like his writing is so bloviating. Just, oh, it's it's some of the worst writing I've seen.
yeah. I mean, and I think actually transition into writing for like comic books too. Like I know he did like a few Black Panther runs,
He's doing
which were
Captain
just
America now. It's like,
yeah, he's doing
why? He's
Captain America
terrible.
now, and I think he's also writing for the new Superman movie.
Oh, he's made like, yeah, it's just like, oh God, why? He's not a good writer. He's not. His writing is not. It's it doesn't say anything new. It doesn't say
Mhm.
anything at all, really. It's just
Right, nothing compelling or original. Just
it,
more like the same old, like, oh, white people bad. You know, they're keeping the black man oppressed.
he will do cartwheels to find some sort of connection to slavery. It's like, dude, it's you're making a stretch on pretty much every occasion, and and he is just so condescending. Just the words that it's pretty much like, look at all these big words that I know. It's like I'm this
So yeah, I have a word
word
of the
person.
day calendar too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like. I'm just like, I'm looking at like, I remember because I was helping my wife out with one of her like English assignments, and she had to read one of his books. I'm like, oh God, I hate this guy so much, because I had to read it too, because she's like, what?
Yeah.
At first, because she's like, what the fuck is being said in this book? It's like, to be honest, honey, I don't know either, because it doesn't make any goddamn sense. It doesn't say anything. It's using all these big words to say nothing.
Right. Yeah, no, it's like that kind of stuff just makes me feel like it's like, am I taking crazy pills?
No, you're not. He really has nothing to say. I've read his work. He has nothing to say. It's
Hmm.
just him using big words, and oh, it's slavery is bad. Essentially, and like how pretty much slavery is still going on. That's his argument.
Right. Yeah,
It,
but it's like, and it's so funny that like those progressive like academic types, um, make America out to be this lone uh, bearer of the stain of slavery, where it's like there's never been a civilization on this planet that didn't have slavery. Not like without exception, there has not been one society, one civilization.
yeah, we're not saying that we're like, woo, slavery. No one likes slavery. It's bad.
Right.
Um, it's like, I know that's one of the big like knocks on the Bible, like when, especially when you're reading a lot of stuff from the Old Testament, and how like they had conditions for like slavery. Well, technically, the slavery that they're talking about is more or less indentured servitude, which is also
Right.
bad,
Right. Yeah,
but
and not
it's
yeah,
not
not
like
chattel
that,
slavery.
which is completely different.
Right. Where you
Um,
like where yeah, because like the system of slavery that's talked about in the Bible is more of like a like you are not, well, I guess loaning out your skills, your work, your work product out to the supposed leaseholder, let's say,
yeah,
as opposed to the chattel type system where it's like you own the person entirely.
yeah, they're essentially property, which is
Yeah.
that's the and that's, to me, yes, that is a worse version of slavery. That's really bad.
Hmm.
Uh,
Agreed.
no one's arguing that. And to be honest, I think I would take a lot more seriously, like the talks, like, oh, this, like, because we're always going back to the past, like, and saying how, oh, we've had 400 years of slavery. It's like, no, no, actually we haven't. It was um and no one talks about the Irish, orphans and shit that were also in slavery. No one talks about
Hmm.
that either. Uh, who
Right. Or
were
how, yeah, or like how, what was it? One of the biggest slave trades was out of what is it? It's a Dutch country.
Oh yeah,
From Holland, out of Holland.
yeah.
Yeah, so like yeah, like one of the biggest like slave like one of like the biggest slave trade organization came out of Holland.
Yeah. The other
Yeah,
thing
and I mean,
too,
and God bless them for like their marketing campaign to switch from slavery to like what is it, windmills and dikes.
uh,
God bless them.
the other thing too, the other thing people always like complain about too is like, oh, well, there was times where we thought that black people were 3/5 of a person. It's like, okay, back up. The
Mm.
3/5 no one really understands what the hell the
I know,
3/5
yeah. Everyone
is
like throws that
about.
out. Yeah, yeah. But continue.
It's it was not that black people were they thought that uh, black people are 3/5 of a person. Were there some people that a lot of people just thought that they were property, but like but what was going on is this was because there were people who did not want slavery in this country. They've been trying to get rid of it since even before the founding of the country. I mean, John Adams was one of the greatest abolitionists that we've had in this country. That no one really talks about that, but they didn't. The original drafts of like the Declaration and the Constitution, they wanted to rid us of slavery. They blamed King George that like you brought this onto our lands. We don't want it anymore.
Mhm.
And obviously there were people that were profiting from slavery. Like some of the wealthy Southerners who owned slaves. And they didn't obviously they had to make a compromise. They would have loved to have had slavery continued and all that, but based off of our governmental system, which is it's a representative government, but
A republic.
they thought of them as property, but they were going to count them as people. And
Right. Yeah. So it's like this weird like contradiction. It's like, oh, we want the benefits of like them being counted as people, but we're still gonna treat them as
because they
property.
wanted more
Exactly.
pro slavery representatives for them to help keep that alive.
Hmm.
So they had to like, no, we don't want that. We want to get rid of this. But obviously, like we would have had a civil war way earlier, which at that time in the country would have destroyed us.
Potentially the United States wouldn't have been founded.
Right. It would have destroyed us right from the beginning.
Hmm.
Whereas, okay, so we're gonna do what's called the 3/5 compromise, where we're gonna count them as 3/5 of a person, so that way, like they don't have as many representatives, and it doesn't mean that they're 3/5 of a person. It just means that they don't want a lot of pro-slavery representatives. They wanted to kind of slowly diminish it, like as best they could. I mean, that's the fight at the
Or,
time.
or like, well, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the 3/5 was, I mean, again, not the misinterpretation of counting each slave as 3/5 of Earth, but the total populations, you'd only count 3/5 of the total population of slaves, or you'd only tally up the 3/3 of the total population of slaves going towards the official state count.
Right. So let's say like if there were 5 slaves, you would only
Hmm.
count 3 of them.
Yes,
So
exactly. So
that,
yeah,
that
so if there's like 500 in a certain county, they'd only count the 300.
that's because of with our House of Representatives, it's based off of like because they represent the people,
Hmm.
and the more people that are available, that means there's more representatives. And of course, like if you're in these pro-slavery states and you're counting all of the slaves, as like just each individual, well, that means more representation for their side because obviously, like they don't get a vote, obviously, but like they the people that do have a vote, they're going to put in the pro-slavery guys, and so you might have 50 more representatives in the House of Representatives that are pro-slavery, and that is not something that a lot of the abolitionists and the founders of the country really wanted. So that is why you have that 3/5 compromise.
Hmm.
That's the thing that people don't understand. They want to think like, oh, we thought of black people as 3/5 of a person. That's not what was going on at all.
Right.
Is it still bad? Sure. It's not the perfect solution is, oh, just end slavery as the country started. But like we wouldn't have a country if that was the case.
right, and they want us for some reason without without applying the standards to themselves. They want to retroactively apply these you know unrealistic standards to historical figures, saying like, oh, if you weren't 100% morally righteous person, then nothing nothing in your body of work means anything. You
Yeah.
know, what is it? What is it? I mean, it was it was telegraphed from a long way, but Donald Trump was the only one that call it out. Especially with oh, they're talking about like removing the Civil War monuments. Particularly honoring those who fought on behalf of the Confederacy. He's talking about like, oh well, you know what? Washington owned slaves. Jefferson owned slaves. Are we gonna take down statues of Washington and da da da. But I think just a couple of weeks ago, they removed the what is it, Thomas Jefferson statue. I think somewhere in New York. I want to say outside a city hall or some sort of government building.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, of course they
But
are.
yeah, it's just like, but like, yeah, it's like, did they not? It's like, oh, people, more on like the progressive is the extreme progressive side. They'll say like, oh, like, why didn't they, have not have take out slavery or make slavery illegal in the, from the founding of the country? It's like, well, as we just mentioned, then we wouldn't have had the support of the southern states, which wouldn't have led to the United States. Um, and
Yeah,
then and it's like, and on and on. Like, I think the people definitely take for granted what the founders laid down for us, like in terms of foundationally, because you know you can't have a document that says that all men are created equal, and then say like, oh yeah, but let's lock those niggers in chains. No, you can't. And obviously the founders knew that, and so what they did was, they empower the people to handle it later. It's like he's like, we're not going to be able to take care of it in our time, so we're going to trust this important thing to the next generation, and
yeah,
on it went, because yes, you made the compromise by not explicitly outlawing slavery in the United States, and but then you go down the line and you get to the 3/5 compromise, and then and then on and on and on and on, and more and more, you start chipping away at it, and you eventually get to the Civil War, and you get the 13th and 14th Amendment,
yeah.
which should have been the end of it. But then again, but then
Well,
like later on we get to the I mean, I'm starting to think that the civil rights movement was very stupid, or at least or at least redundant, because we already had the 13th and 14th Amendment.
well, I think a lot of the problem is too, and where, because we'll never know what Lincoln's
Right.
idea of
What? Yeah.
Reconstruction was, because he died before he could enact it. And to be honest,
Mm.
I think it was like, you know what, the South, we're just gonna forget everything happened. Everything's gonna go, everyone's, go back to your corners, and but slavery's done with, and I think that was gonna be it. But because he was killed, you have Andrew Johnson, who was a terrible president. He and
Yeah. No. I think
he
it was
was
Lincoln's
so bitter.
intention. Yeah, it was Lincoln's intention to do kind of the who was the president? Was it Ford? Who, kind of like with the draft dodgers. He was gonna. From what I remember hearing is Lincoln was gonna do kind of the same thing with the South, and like offer blanket pardons, for
Yeah,
anyone who who carried arms during the Civil War, against the Union. And so
yeah,
yeah, like, so
yeah,
Lincoln's vision of at least a part of his vision for Reconstruction was to really bring back the country as a whole by saying like, okay, you guys did this thing, but in the end of the day, we're all Americans, so we're gonna
The
forget that
bygones be
about this.
bygones.
Bygones be bygones, and but still have like some. Again, I'm starting to have problems because Lincoln all the good things that Lincoln was
He did a
doing.
few things that are like,
He
oh shit. Like there's a lot of
yeah
things that he did that I'm like, that's not really constitutional. Okay.
yeah no yeah, like suspending like habeas corpus and suspending uh, access of the free press and so on and so on.
Yeah, there
But I
was a
think
few things
his
that he did.
yeah, and I mean yeah, like I think his vision was like for reunification, but through with like some federal like oversight.
Yeah,
But I think but knowing kind of knowing the man Lincoln was, that federal oversight would eventually like have been dissolved.
yeah. But Andrew Johnson was a cruel, bitter man,
Yeah,
and
vindictive son of a bitch. Yeah.
it probably I think to be honest, he's the only president that I think was legitimately up for impeachment. Like actually had a real strong reason because he was terrible,
Mm.
and I think because of his actions, that is the real cause of why there was so much backlash against the freed slaves and why there was the creation of the Ku Klux Klan and all this stuff
Mm.
because it was retaliation against.
And gun control laws up until like after the Civil War, there was the whole concept of gun control didn't even exist.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like he was awful. I to be outside of maybe like Woodrow Wilson, it's one of our worst presidents.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
interestingly enough, both Democrats.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, 'cause, those of you who are confused, uh, I forget what year it was, but prior to, uh, I don't know, sometime after Lincoln, or sometime before Lincoln, like the president and the vice president, they were pretty much up, it was up for grabs. So whoever made, so you had like the presidential ticket, and then you had the vice presidential ticket. They were not on the
yeah,
same.
it was a whole different system of how like
Yeah.
it wasn't like that the president was kind of or the presidential candidates were nominated by their
Yeah.
parties and then they chose that candidate chose their vice presidential run. No,
Yeah.
it's a completely different system.
Mm-hmm.
um
And so, which kind of, if you're a Republican, you could have been saddled with Democratic. I mean, in the case of Lincoln, that's what happened. You had a Republican president saddled with Democrat vice president, who was, pretty, probably hostile to your agenda.
to be honest, I kind of think that might have been a better system, but that's just me.
I mean, now I'm starting to think so too, just because it just provides like another
Balance.
layer of protection,
Balance.
another
Yeah.
check against the overreaching power of the executive.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah, but it is what it is now.
But anyways, going back to the idea of slavery, like yeah, that's where this new documentary from Colin Kaepernick, essentially
nice
like
segue.
he is calling a guy who all he says is I just want to play in the NFL again. I just want to play in the NFL
Yeah.
again.
So a guy that wants,
Who does not want to play in the NFL
yeah.
again.
So a guy who's constantly trying to enslave himself, is saying that slavery is bad.
Well, he's calling the NFL being a NFL player slavery, despite
Right, exactly.
like,
So this guy is
always,
constantly trying to enslave himself, but he's saying that slavery is bad. Go figure.
we all know that he's an idiot.
Yeah.
He has nothing to say. To be honest, I know like he's kind of like the spokesman of civil rights or whatever. It's like, but he's not. He is for
No.
himself. I don't think he gives a two fucks about any black person or anybody but himself.
No. Yeah. I mean, and really, like, I was watching. No, it wasn't Jason Whitlock, but Jason Whitlock was on the show. I was watching.
Who
I
I
was
love.
watching.
Jason Whitlock is a very fascinating dude. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he first came out. Like, I was, I didn't agree with everything he said, but he said some like pretty reasonable stuff. So, I could definitely see myself having a beer with him.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, he was talking about like how, because he does primarily sports stuff, um, and or sports analysis, and so he actually, and so because Colin Kaepernick still kind of occupies this space of sports, he watched the documentary, and he was saying how like yeah, this documentary is like him and Kaepernick and strippers all have the same problem. They have daddy issues.
Oh,
And it's like
that is so Whitlock. Oh,
yeah, and so he was talking about like how like in the documentary, Colin Kaepernick keeps like talking about how he's haunted at the fact that he never knew his like biological father and doesn't have a relationship with him and yada yada yada, and so yeah, like the biggest takeaway for Jason Whitlock, the biggest takeaway from this documentary was that yeah, Colin Kaepernick has daddy issues.
I'll say this like about sports too, because there was a time. I don't know about football, but I know in baseball for sure that there was a time where it's not slavery because they were still getting paid, obviously, but the where players once they were drafted and signed by a team, you couldn't just unless like you were traded or you were released, you couldn't just like, hey, you know what? I don't want to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers anymore. I want to play for the New York Yankees, or I want to play for the Giants. You couldn't just like move teams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, once you signed with that team, or you were signed by that team, that was it. And so the owners had a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
That, like I said, it's not slavery, but I could see where like if Colin Kaepernick was making like that type of argument, like that was going on in the NFL, which it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could see like, okay, yeah, and he was fighting for the right to be able to choose the team you want to play on, and like kind of give players some rights as far as like having some autonomy of their career,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're stuck with a shitty team, like that's it. Like you're not going to the World Series, or you're not going to the
Right.
Super Bowl.
But I think
But that's not what's that's not
right. But
what's
I think what the important thing that he's omitting from this thing is that he that players are entering into a what is it, a business contract,
yeah,
of their own free will.
your own
No one's
volition.
putting a gun. No one's putting a gun to their head. No one's no one nobody scooped them up in a cargo net and like forced their hand to sign on the dotted line.
Yeah,
You know they you know
I
they
don't.
were they were presented with a contract. It's like, here are the terms of the contract. This many years for this amount of money.
And hell, like
And other variables like endorsement deals or other like basically side hustles, that you're allowed to do while under contract with us.
what was that?
But,
I don't
but
know. And here's another thing too: is you have unions too that are helping, like kind of getting these players better deal,
oh yeah,
more
yeah,
money,
yeah.
bigger deals.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the league minimum is for the NFL, but I know in baseball it's $500,000 for like league minimum. Like when you're
Mm-hmm.
playing, so it's like, you know what, like that's that's a lot of money. I mean, yeah, you're not gonna live in some like 20-acre mansion, but that's a great living. 500
Mm-hmm.
grand a year, damn.
Yeah, and that's not even again. That's not even including like shoe deals or any other sort of endorsement
Yeah,
deals
and
that you
with
get on the side.
hell, even like I do know, I don't know what it is, but I do know like even if you're on like the practice squad, you're making some pretty good money. Like it's
Yeah, at
not
least
not a
five
lot.
digits.
It's not
Yeah, at
like the
least
top
five
player in the
figures.
league, but you're making money.
Mm-hmm.
You're making a good living. You could argue though too, like I mean, at least when it comes to baseball, you could argue that the minor league guys, they're they're kind of fucked. They're not actually
Mm.
making a whole lot of money.
Right.
and a lot of the travel expenses and
Yeah, come out of their own
their
pockets.
own pocket. Like so, there's a problem with that. To be honest, I think that there should be more rights for the minor league players because especially after all the COVID stuff, those guys were fucked because the whole
Oh
minor
yeah.
its season, like through single A up to triple A, was just obliterated. They had nothing, and it
Right.
came to the point where like players were like, "That's not right," and they were actually giving up a part of their salary that was guaranteed to the minor league players, which
Mhm.
that shouldn't have to be the case at all. You know,
Right.
these
But I mean, if certain major league teams use these minor league teams as like farms to like pick kind of shop kind of like develop players and stuff,
yeah,
the major league team should at least kind of pitch in with certain expenses, but not necessarily subsidize everything.
yeah, it's so like and the other if that was like an argument that Kaepernick was making that like if that was what was going on in the NFL, hey, you know what? I actually might agree with him, but that's not what
Right.
his
No, yeah,
documentary.
no,
It's
because
not
of
him.
course he does what every progressive does, and they overstep. They take it just that one step too far,
Well,
and
he's
you know,
over.
and instead of saying, oh, these are unworkable conditions, or for anyone to be under, he went straight to slavery. It's like, oh, this is like slavery. It's like, bruh, it's like you cannot make that comparison. All right, you cannot compare working in the cotton fields for 12 hours, being barely fed, and constantly having the threat of being whipped, to that of being bitched out by your coach for missing a pass.
Oh no, John Gruden yelled at me.
Yeah.
Man,
Exactly. Like
God,
the
you know
two
what?
are not comparable.
I'll take that slavery all day long.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like if that's the kind of slavery that you're talking about, getting paid millions of dollars to play a game, then hell yeah, give me that.
Tell
Give
me
me
I'm
some of that slavery.
yeah. If to have Bill Belichick tell me I'm an idiot, I'll take it. I'll cry into my $100 bills.
I know, right? I'll be, yeah, as I'm also wiping my ass with 20s.
Jesus, it's just like, but this is a guy who doesn't need a documentary. He doesn't need any more coverage. The guy he's made more money outside of the NFL than he ever made in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, no
So I
one.
mean,
Okay, see,
if
no one thinks that Colin Kaepernick is trying to get back into the NFL. Nobody thinks that. Even with displays of the contrary, where like him, like putting on like his own tryout or whatever. It's like
we,
that's
we
all
talked
just for
we
show.
talked about this, Andy. Like the NFL bent over backwards to give him the combine or his tryouts that he wanted. They had all the teams there. They had everything ready to go,
Mhm.
and he said, "No, I want my own." He created all these like crazy demands, and like he wanted to change the venue. It's like we can't do that. We've already everyone's here. We're waiting for you, and he didn't show up.
Right, but no, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like that goes to show that he doesn't really want to be in the NFL.
He
Because
never
he
went
because
to the NFL.
because I think he made the calculations. Like, you know what? I can make more money, being this slacktivist than I could ever make, passing the pigskin.
I mean,
I
I
think
think
he made that calculation.
Nike gave him like $140 million deal or some crazy number. It's like,
Mm,
good God.
right,
I'm
but it's
sure
also
Netflix threw a ton of money at him,
ex-
and whatever else. Like he's making way more money than he ever would have in the NFL because
yeah, no, exactly. Because I think he made that calculation. He's seen other people make that transition to being like a quote unquote activist, and seen and saw that their pockets got fat. And
yeah.
it's like, oh hey, oh, this guy, he's causing a stink about race and slavery and yada yada yada, and he's making banks. So
I almost wonder
maybe.
what I almost wonder what his adopted family thinks. To be honest, like because
Seriously, I know you got
I
because
haven't heard a
again,
word more about that.
his biological mother is white. His His father was black. His biological mother put him up for adoption, and then a white family adopted him, and he had all of the. I'm not using this ironically, but he had all the privileges of being a white person.
He never wanted anything.
He never wanted for anything. He went to all the best schools. His parents paid for everything.
Yeah, and he was drafted, I think, by the Brewers or the Rockies. I don't remember. I think it was the Brewers. But then he ended up choosing football because he got drafted for football too. I think he chose football over baseball. The guy, like, because like when he first played, I was like, all right, man, this guy's pretty good. Like, I don't like the 49ers, but I was like, all right, cool. Like this guy's doing pretty good. But as soon as like the league caught up to him, instead of actually like putting in some effort and like trying to change up his game and like
keep up, taking stock, taking stock of one's abilities and be like, hey, you know what? He's like, maybe I need to improve my game a little bit. I'm gonna put in some more time, at the gym. I'm gonna take more. I'm gonna put in more hours, during practice, running drills and whatnot. He's like, no. It's like it's the league's fault. No, it's the society's fault. It's because I didn't know who my real father was. I love that summation that Jason Woodlock came up with.
Oh, he
and strippers have the same problem, daddy issues.
Yeah, he summed it up perfectly. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, hell, even like Stephen A. Smith, who is he's no right winger. Like he is, pretty lefty. Right. But even he said, it's like, I don't want to hear two more words about this fucking guy. Like he's a terrible player. He's been given all these chances. It essentially was like, fuck Colin Kaepernick. I don't want to hear another word from this guy. It's just like, you're a loser.
Exactly.
That's all I had to say about that. It's just I'm tired of these people who don't deserve a documentary that they
these unremarkable people. These unremarkable people getting these Netflix deals or like these documentaries be made about them for no fucking reason.
And I like documentaries. I like learning about interesting people or interesting events or things like that. And I know like sometimes that they are, just like a movie, they are biased in some degree, because they're not telling every
right. Yeah, they're it's either for or against.
Yeah, but
and I understand that, but it's just like constantly like. Even the ones where the documentary is for the person, they still address like certain unflattering things about that person.
Exactly.
And they give like some space for some reconciliation of the non-flattering bits of that person. But I mean, I haven't seen this documentary, this particular documentary they were talking about Colin Kaepernick. But I don't think it gives that space to for them, to paint to air out some of his less flattering qualities.
I don't know if I want to torture myself to find out.
Wow, you of all people, the king of schlock.
Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it so that you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, you enjoy like schlock, like pure unadulterated schlock. I'm more of like the one that watches the cultural stuff for because I admittedly watch a bad show just so I can keep up with what the mainstream narrative is and like how it's being portrayed.
Oh man, that's maybe I should. You know what? You're Andy. You're right. For our fans, for this podcast, I will. Then I had to, I have to watch it. I had to do the Fauci documentary. I got to do this one, and I got to do the whenever it comes out the Pete Buttigieg
Oh,
documentary. I will do that. You know what? I'm gonna take
oh,
the
Robert.
challenge.
That wasn't a challenge, dude. That wasn't a challenge.
And I will
You have
tell
so
you
much
how
to live
horrible they
for,
are, so you don't
Rob.
have to
Rob,
do
you have so much to live for.
it. Damn it!
Oh
God damn
man,
it, Andy.
that wasn't a challenge. All right, that wasn't it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was not a challenge. All right.
I will sacrifice myself. I will fall on the
Hey, no,
sword.
no, no, don't do, no,
For
don't,
you,
don't,
Andy.
don't do that. Don't do that. All right, because no one was compelling you to do this. You just said it all on your own. I was not challenging you to do anything. All right,
That
and
was a
you
challenge,
cannot
dude.
say that you cannot say you're sacrificing. You are
Because
choosing to watch these.
you're talking
You're
about.
choosing.
Oh,
Okay, you are
I
choosing to
watched a
watch these
terrible
documentaries.
show.
All right,
I
I take no responsibility. I take
I
no
watched a terrible
responsibility.
show to keep up with the culture. It's like, well, this is the culture. Like, and you're. I hate you, Andy, so much right now.
That was not a challenge. All right, that was not a challenge. That was not okay.
I'll have to space it out. Like, I'll watch this crap, and then I have to like put on like a comedy of some sort, like that I like.
Okay, that's not okay, ladies and gentlemen. That was not a challenge. All right, I watch terrible TV shows and things like that for the sake of keeping up with what the mainline culture is thinking. For my own for my own sake. All right, and for your sakes too, because I'll tell you about what the uh, mainline media or narrative is that that's going on. But again, I did not challenge Rob to anything. He's doing this of his own volition.
I hate you, Andy.
I didn't do anything. I am not putting you into a challenge. I did not taunt you into doing this. You're doing this because you want to do this. All right. I'll give you an out right now. I'll give you an out right now. You can back out of this right now.
I can't back out from a challenge. Come on, I'm not a.
It's
I'm
not
not
a
fucking
challenge.
sissy.
It wasn't a challenge.
I am not a sissy, Andy. I
It's
will
not.
accept
No one
your
was calling you that. All
challenge.
right. See, all these words you're coming up with now, those are from your. That's just from you. All right.
All right. Anyways, that's all I
Yeah,
had to
I
say
mean,
about this.
I'm not even gonna watch these documentaries because I just don't want that to take up a space in my brain.
I don't want it either.
Okay, then don't. No one was challenging you. I wasn't challenging you.
That's all I got to say about these just know nothing stupid documentaries that are coming out. Like, if you're gonna watch like a good documentary, if you want to actually like learn something about something, like we've talked about a few documentaries on here. We've talked about if you're a sports fan, watch that Jordan documentary about the Chicago Bulls. That's The Last Dance. Holy crap, that is a fantastic documentary. If you want to watch like a good war documentary, you could watch They Shall Not Grow Old, that Peter Jackson did, which was
Yeah, that's
brilliant.
great.
I've watched that like 3 or 4 times. I love it. You could watch if you want like a another war one. Like Band of Brothers is kind of like a mixture of documentary and kind of
Entertainment.
uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of a portrayal of what was actually happening. If you want to watch like a good
Yeah, I
crime
love Band of
documentary,
Brothers.
there's that one with Robert Durst and like the murder that he committed, which which they fucking got that guy, because he definitely killed his what was his wife or whatever. That what the hell?
The Beretta.
Yeah, like I forgot what the hell it was called, but dude, it is chilling. It is really good. It was on
Oh wait,
HBO, I believe.
okay,
It was HBO or Showtime.
yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah, but Robert something or other. Yeah,
Robert
he was
Durst
on that.
is. It was on Robert Durst.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was thinking of someone else then.
Oh, you're thinking of the guy that
Yeah,
shot.
Beretta.
Yeah, he I don't know if there was a documentary done on that one either, but like yeah, that's one of those cases. Like yeah, he did that shit. Um,
Okay. This dude.
what was that? I can't remember the name of that documentary. I watched it like when it came out. I was like, I couldn't stop
Oh, the
watching.
Jinx.
The Jinx. Yes,
Okay,
that is a
yeah, this guy.
fantastic documentary.
hmm The Jinx.
Yeah,
Who's the
those are
other
good
guy?
documentaries. Don't watch this. And even as problematic as it is entertaining. Like the making of a murderer. That's actually at least an entertaining documentary, even though like
Oh, Robert
that dude.
Blake.
That yeah. Robert Blake. That's who you're thinking of. Is
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of.
uh even like making of a murderer. Even though like there's a lot of problems with that documentary, and that dude totally did it.
hmm
Um, you could make an argument that the kid that he roped in that was kind of like he's an idiot, and it's kind of like this a
Yeah, like
Mike
his
Penn type.
nephew. Yeah.
And I kind of feel bad for that kid. But other than that, it's like yeah, that dude totally fucking did it. Like it's just, but it's still entertaining. You know, it's an entertaining one.
hmm
These ones like Fauci and Black and White or whatever the fuck Colin Kaepernick's one is called. It's those are not going to be entertaining. Those are going to be terrible.
I wonder what. Oh, dude, you know what Pete Buttigieg's documentary should be called?
Up the ass.
Oh, but I was gonna do more of a play on words with his names, like so in the butt.
In the we're Andy and me same page.
I know, right?
Not
Same
rehearsed.
wavelength.
Not we didn't talk about this beforehand. Totally on the same page.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. To be honest though, I do not believe that guy's gay. I don't. I think it's all fake.
Hmm.
I don't have
Here-
any evidence for that,
Um.
but
Right.
I think this is.
Okay. What about Neil Patrick Harris? Do you think he's gay?
I mean, no.
Okay. Yeah. Cause what is it? A
He plays
former roommate.
he plays a straight guy too well. I'm sorry.
Right. No. 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 Yeah. Because of my former roommate. He told me, because Neil Patrick Harris is like really into magic,
Yeah,
and so like I think like he's done like a residence at like the Magic Castle here in LA.
yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Magic Castle is like this
I
is
want
this
to go
venue.
so badly.
It's this venue for like magicians, and like you can only you can only go there by invitation. And you basically you get dressed up all nice, suit and tie, for the men, dress for the ladies. I mean, God knows what it is now, but historically that's how it was. You got dressed up in the nines. You went to this place in Hollywood, like this old house, and it has like secret passages and things. And then you go and have dinner, and there'd be a magic show done. Um, my old roommate, he reports that a friend of his who worked at the Magic Castle, or like who was trying to get like kind of like a residency so he can perform magic there too. He's like said that he's seen multiple interactions of Neil Patrick Harris and women, uh, at the Magic Castle. And I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I don't want to discredit this person. I don't even know who my roommate's friend is. And so at the time, I was just like, well, maybe, anything's possible. But, he was very adamant that, that no, Neil Patrick Harris is not gay. And again, again, I have no firsthand knowledge. There's no like corroborating evidence as of
I have
yet.
no evidence on either case.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I definitely could believe that Neil Patrick Harris is not gay, and I really don't believe that Pete Buttigieg is gay. I think it's kind of the same thing we were talking about, like all these like people that are playing a minority of some sort. to get
Right.
ahead.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, because Neil Patrick Harris played straight way too convincingly
We're too convincing,
in Harold and Kumar and in How I Met Your Mother.
which is a great show. I love How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a little bit of a side, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think we've said all we can about the whole Netflix thing. So let's
The,
go on to what was that?
well, I was saying I was gonna make the transition. It's like and on to other Hollywood hacks. We're gonna talk about a little bit more about Alec Baldwin,
Right.
who I like
Yeah, I
as an
mean,
actor. I like Alec Baldwin. A lot of the like stuff that he's played in. I think he's great in Hunt for Red October. I loved him
mhm.
in 30 Rock. He's a great actor, but he's a terrible person.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, social media has become kind of a double-edged sword. In that you get more access to like some more some of your favorite celebrities and actor types, but then it also like reveals more about who they really are. And
Yeah,
uh,
there's
Alec
some that
Bald
there's
and
some
Alec
guys
Baldwin
that
is proving to be a huge jackwagon.
yeah. I mean, there's some who I'm like, oh wow, I really like this actor. Like they've I didn't really think too much about them until but now you get a little bit more access to them. It's like, wow, I kind of like this guy,
Hmm.
or gal, or you have other people where it's like, man, I like you as an actor, but you're a terrible person. You
I
say
know
horrible
exactly.
things.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I think one of the first things, or I think it was even prior to social media really taking off, but it was like the whole phone conversation that got leaked between him and his daughter, Ireland, who he had previously with his former wife, Kim Basinger,
mhm.
and just kind of like unloading on her and just kind of being just awful to his own kid.
Yeah,
But thanks to PR departments and kind of spinning his image into being like this kind of fun, goofy kind of character, like on 30 Rock and such. He kind of was able to rehab his image a little bit.
yeah.
But
Oh,
then,
you're right. He is a great actor. Like there no doubt about it. But he's a terrible person.
yeah. But again, social media being a double-edged sword. Particularly when he started voicing more of his political positions.
Yeah,
Particularly about particularly on like gun control and kind of and demonstrating the hypocrisy of a man who's made his career uh, you know partly based on characters who use firearms and then go around and say like, oh, all guns are bad.
yeah. It's just like it's the a lot of the stuff that he would tweet or whatever about like it kind of like very anti Second Amendment, kind of talking a lot of trash about that, and then to
Mhm.
have this incident that we talked about last week, that came out, which honestly, like, do I think that he did it on purpose? No, I really don't. I don't think he did it on purpose. He an idiot? Sure.
Mhm.
Um, kind of like what I talked about. You don't ever fucking point a gun and pull the trigger, load it or unload it at anybody unless you're trying to kill them.
Right.
Um, but the fact that like this is a time where he should, I think, shut the fuck up
Yeah.
and just
He
kind of
should disappear.
yeah, it's like I don't want him to disappear forever. Like I don't want him to
Right. Yeah.
have a
Just lay
career.
low.
No,
Don't
I'm not
yeah.
like
Don't make too many waves. Ripples, not waves.
yeah, like
Um.
this is a time where behind the scenes where nobody knows, where you do the thing that's like, hey, you know what, like I am truly sorry to this family. Let me take care of them because he has
Right. Well, I mean, this. I mean, what we're about to talk about, it just goes to show you that he is not a man of integrity.
no.
Because yeah, because what is it like? I guess I mean partially not his fault, but like I guess media was kind of hounding him. While he was on vacation in I think Vermont with his family, kind of trying to get away from things, and so like he kind of had an impromptu press conference with some of the media, and he was he's being completely. I mean, I guess he's kind of being abusive. Yelling at them for 'cause I guess one of the reporters like referred to that woman as like, oh, that woman, or like her, or not by her name.
Well, let's be honest.
And so like he got upset by that, but then also like his fake Spanish wife, his fake Spanish wife kind of kept like, was for some reason recording like the whole interaction, and and like inserting herself in like weird in odd places during the impromptu news conference. And then also, this is the contradictory nature, of the whole thing, because he said at the beginning, he's like, oh, I was advised not to talk about this thing, and then he proceeds to go and talk about this thing. And
Yeah.
And of course he's like saying like, oh, I think we should do away with guns on set, but then what he really means is like just get rid of guns in general. But but he's just talking, but he's using the capital of this incident to again go after guns. He didn't say get rid of guns generally, but but that's what eventually he's gonna work up to.
Yeah, and that's where like you kind of have that thing where it's like he's not taking responsibility for his actions. Like, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have done what I did. It's like I was irresponsible myself.
Right. I mean, and we're not saying that you're guilty of like premeditated murder or anything, but the gun was in your hand. The gun went off and the gun went off in your hand. So you should at least take responsibility for that. We're not saying that you had murderous intent.
No one thinks that.
It's like I shot this woman. I didn't do it willfully or meaning or like purposefully, but you shot this woman. And you have not. I mean, again, maybe for legal reasons, you don't want to admit to anything, but it's just like, if you're if Baldwin was a man of integrity, that wouldn't have stopped him, to be say like, yeah, like it was in my hands. I take responsibility for this woman's death.
Yeah,
and that's not admitting to murder. You're just saying like, like my actions caused this woman's death. So I am taking responsibility for that. I am not, and again, that's not. I think that's enough lawyer speak to, to get around the whole issue of admission.
Yeah, because you're not like admitting like, oh, I wanted to kill this person. Like, no, that's not what you're saying. It's like, it's still like, but it's still your responsibility. You were.
The gun was in your hand,
and I will make sure that I make this. I can't bring that person back, but I will do my best to try to make things right.
Right. Yeah. Like
that's not what he did.
Yeah, but over the weekend, because it was Halloween and whatever. I don't necessarily think it was personally him. It might have just been his wife, but she posted pictures of like him and the kids. Yeah, again, his fake Spanish wife.
It always makes me laugh. It's so bad.
Yeah. But yeah, like them like in their Halloween costumes, but just it was and like smiling, and that optically alone is kind of bad. Like him like smiling during this this tragedy. But then the caption was really bad, saying like, "Oh, it's hard being a parent," and it's like the hard being a parent part. That's what was unbelievable.
That's what
like at a time where you're I mean, whether or not he wants to admit it or not, like he's responsible for a family missing a mother, missing a wife. It's he's responsible for a father having more problems being a father, and so for I mean, again, his fake Spanish wife did it, not personally he did it, but his fake Spanish wife put up that caption saying how hard it is to be a parent. It's like
you're an idiot.
The tone deafness of that post, it just it's completely unbelievable.
If if Alec Baldwin had any balls, like, bitch, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it's fine to take a family photo, like, and like, that's for us. Don't fucking post it on social media, you
Right?
dumb,
Yeah. I mean, you could still have that picture, but just don't share it.
yeah,
Particularly of
dumb bitch. Like, don't do that to me. It's like, come
yeah.
on,
I
like
mean,
that's
do you know like how many how many pictures on my phone I have that I don't post up to social media?
a
A
lot.
fucking lot. All right. There's some things I just take. There's some things I just take for myself. And I don't. And yes, I could share it and be or whatever. But for whatever reason, I decide. You know what? This one's just for me. I'm gonna save this picture just for me.
Yeah,
And you could and then you could still post it, but like post it like maybe around next Halloween.
yeah.
Or wait like 6 months and be like, oh, this the past 6 months have been hard.
But thank God I have
But
my family with me.
yeah, but thank God I have my family, you know, and again, like 6 months down the line, it it doesn't have the same sting as 2 weeks after.
Sure. Well, that's why I always tell my wife too, like with some things, like, honey, just live in the moment. Like, you don't need to like take photos of everything. Like, it's okay. We don't need to like post every like meal that we eat or every event that we go to. Like, just
Mhm.
enjoy what we have like right here. We can take pictures or like have put the memories in our head. We don't need to post
Yeah,
everything.
or I mean, just because particularly this past weekend, what is it? We went out a lot, and I didn't take one picture of myself, or you
No,
know,
neither do I.
or if anything, I was in more pictures from other people. Uh,
Yep, same here.
and I remember, because we went out that one the Saturday night, and we were at a club, and there and because it was like Halloween theme, like the DJ, they were doing some crowd work and interacting, and everyone had like their phones out, recording everyone else's uh, like reaction or response to like the DJ's call out. But I was just like there, just like enjoying myself. Um,
This is definitely not my thing to do because I really don't like going to the club. But I was
mhm,
just me. I did have fun. I was enjoying my drinks and just kind of like just hanging out. Like that's all I did.
mhm.
It's just like I don't need to like just enjoy yourself. Like, why do we have to like record everything? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, and I knew, like, again, because I was, because of my costume, I knew I was gonna be in a lot of people's photos, or I even like like in the place we went on Saturday, like the photographer capturing everything. I was the one to give him advice, like, hey, like, he's like, you should get a picture of me and the DJ because she's dressed like the doll from Squid Game, and I'm,
That's right.
and I'm
Yeah, she
dressed as.
was.
Yeah, she was, and then I was like, oh, and because I'm dressed as like the cookie, and like that, that'd be a cool picture. And he took my advice. And there's probably a nice picture on like that club's website of me and the DJ together, just having a
Awesome.
good time. And if I wanted, I can probably go to their website and and clip it for myself.
Yeah. Plus especially with like when it comes to like family stuff, like I know whenever I have kids or whatever,
Hmm.
I'm taking a lot of pictures, but I ain't posting shit of that online.
Right. Yeah. I mean, every once in a while, yeah, but I mean, unless yeah, what I want to do is I want to post my kid's first turd.
First poop
I know, first poo, like, go, let's go. But I know it's gonna be against like some sort of terms of,
guidelines or whatever,
yeah,
but
guidelines
hey,
or whatever. All right, but but that's what I want to do. All right, I want to post my kid's first turd.
but yeah, with everything that's going on with like Alec Baldwin, it's like it's just kind of uh like I said, I'm praying for the guy because I know like that I'm sure the guy is feels
Yeah,
terrible.
he's reeling. You know,
Yeah,
and
I'm not saying that he's a complete like heartless monster that doesn't
right.
give a shit. Like I think he does, like it does affect him, but the things that he is doing or saying concerning everything is tone deaf and dumb, and it just kind of really shows some of his character. It's just like he is making it more about his self and his image than about like what's really important.
Mhm.
And the backlash against that is like, you know what, he deserves all of it because he showed no mercy towards anyone else that was going through that were not of his political affiliation, and treated a lot of people like shit, and
Mhm. Yeah, I
honestly
mean,
undeserved.
the most ironic tweet in the history of ironic tweets is, after that cop, shot that kid in Long Beach or whatever, and he put out, I wonder what it feels like to, what was it? I wonder what it feels like to wrongfully kill somebody.
Mm.
Well, now you know, bitch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like honestly, like he deserves all that he's getting right now.
Mhm. Again, compassion and
Maybe it'll make
mercy
him
and
a better person,
compassion
but
and mercy and all, but you deserve this.
yeah, I maybe it'll make him a better person. That's my hope, but I
Yeah, I
highly
know.
doubt
Yeah, and hope springs eternal.
it.
You know.
But yeah, that's all I got to say about that. I just kind of like, man, just fucking like wake up, dude. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Your wife's an
And
idiot.
yeah, your fake Spanish wife's an idiot. And take away her phone. Take away your fake Spanish wife's phone.
It's like she.
Again, I will never
If
stop
I was
referring to
all
her like
her,
that.
I'd be like, bitch, what are you trying to do to me?
You know, it's like, yeah, and I will never stop referring to her as such, fake Spanish wife.
It's really once like I heard that, and I'm like, I'm listening to like her interviews, like, holy shit, she's not fucking. She has no. It's all bullshit. Just like in Shutter Island.
Just like in Shutter Island. Nice. All right, yeah. Okay, guys. Yeah, let's get into our movie review, which again tonight is Shutter Island. Yes, very excited. I mean, this is one of the rare times where even I am really excited about talking about this movie. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
you were like when I came up with this theme, you're like, dude, we got to do Shutter Island. I was like, done. Sold. It's like you
right,
had to
and then
sell.
you're like, yeah, and I'm sure you're wondering, like, wow, this is like the first time, like, Andy's really been enthusiastic about a movie.
There's been a few times, like when we did our Machismo month, you were super excited,
Oh
especially when it
yeah,
came to Best of the Best. Like that,
oh
you
yeah,
were super excited for that movie.
because I know
Rightfully so.
because I know how good it was. All right, and
Yeah.
I totally fucking what's that? I catfished you because I let you watch that shitty trailer.
Oh, the trailer was so bad.
Yeah, and which made Robert think that it was gonna be schlock, but
Which
there
I'm
was
gonna
some
watch
real
and enjoy. Like
there's like real depth in that movie.
I cried, dude. Like I had tears. I was
I
like,
how could you not? If you don't cry at the end, you're a monster.
I know. There's- I can count on my hand how many movies have made me cry. That that it's that's one of them.
Absolutely. All right, let me hit y'all with the synopsis and we'll get going. All right, Shutter Island, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Ruffalo, Ben Kingsley, Max. Yeah, no, seriously. Mm-hmm. Who else? Really quickly. Up and comers. Yeah. Michelle Williams, the one who, yes. The implausible escape of a brilliant murderess brings U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels and his new partner to Ashcliff Hospital, a fortress-like insane asylum located on a remote, windswept island. The woman appears to have vanished from her locked room, and there are hints of terrible deeds committed within the hospital walls. As investigation deepens, Teddy realizes he will have to confront his own dark fears if he hopes to make it off the island alive.
So this is obviously Martin Scorsese is the director. This is his, I believe, like third or fourth film that he did with
Leo.
DiCaprio.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I was watching a lot of Scorsese interviews about this movie. And there was a section of him like talking about DiCaprio and like, kind of the progress that he made with him. Like obviously they did The Departed together,
Mm-hmm.
The Aviator. I'm trying to think what the other one was that he
Kings of New
did.
York.
Oh, that's right, Kings of New York. But it was like once they did The Departed, he saw it's like, oh yeah, this is a movie that like I can use DiCaprio with because I can see the depth that he can, the levels that he can reach as an actor. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, totally. Like this is like I think peak DiCaprio. Like everyone was wanting him. Nolan wanted him.
Mm-hmm.
Scorsese wanted him. Tarantino wanted him. Everybody, all like the heavy hitters wanted DiCaprio. I mean, and
Yeah,
God,
I mean, they got him too because I mean, what was it? I know it was a few years later, but Tarantino worked with them in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then
yeah,
yeah, and then again, I think Inception was before this.
yeah, it was. It
But
like they
yeah,
came out the same year, I believe.
mm.
But
Well, yeah, this movie came out in 2010, and I think Inception came out. I think Inception came out like the year before.
was it 2009? Okay, you might be right on that. But I argue that DiCaprio is the
Oh
Cary
no, you're
Grant.
right. 2010.
Yeah, he is the Cary Grant of our time. Like I can't think of a bad DiCaprio film.
Mm.
And Cary
Yeah,
Grant,
I'd be hard pressed. I'd be hard pressed too
yeah,
to
Cary
think of a
Grant was
bad one.
not in a bad movie. I can argue that too. Like he was in a lot of all his movies were actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the the movie itself, Shutter Island, is a one of those movies where there is a huge twist at the end, or that's kind of like what we're led to believe that
Yeah.
you know
Well, yeah.
um,
Well, let's before we proceed,
where do we want to
let's
start
like
on
really
this?
talk about the movie first, and then we can go into
The theory.
the theory.
Okay,
But yeah, this movie, in terms of like how the look, the cinematography, and the performances, all all stellar, all top
this is
notch.
well, this is also a multi-genre film.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
very layered. It's very
it's a
layered, like multiple genres on top of each other, um, which I think just goes to underscore uh, Scorsese's vision of for this movie.
oh yeah. Um,
Um,
yeah. Obviously, we have DiCaprio's character Teddy Daniels, who
mhm,
is he's a U.S. Marshal. He meets up with a new partner, Chuck, played by Mark Ruffalo, and they
mhm,
are going in to investigate a patient escape at this. It's a criminal mental institution. Like it's the criminally insane. Um, and as they investigate, there's a lot of odd things that are going on, and right away we kind of know there's a lot of people are very tense when they're asked questions. There's a lot of deception going on, and right from the get-go we're like wondering like who's telling the truth, what's going on, who is, we don't really know who like the bad guy is, but like there's definitely a lot of hidden
right. There's like
layers.
there's like a lot of illusions. Or is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah,
I'm just
well,
gonna go with it. A lot of illusions made because you have like the suspected Nazi doctor in Max von Sydow. Um, you have like the warden who kind of holds himself very kind of proper, and what is it? Leo's character deduces that he might be ex-military. So like we're given a lot of red herrings in this, and like who could be the bad guy, and then slowly, even eventually, the head doctor played by Ben Kingsley, he's even starts to be looked upon with some suspicion.
Yeah, I love Ben Kingsley. He's such a great. That guy is a great actor.
Yeah.
Whatever he's in, he's great.
Hmm.
He plays it like he gives everything he has in every performance he does,
Hmm.
and this is no exception. Um, and like I said, we as we do as we're tagging along the investigation, we're finding new characters. Like we end up interviewing different people concerning what's going on, and we're given new layers to it. And uh, what we realize is that Teddy Daniels, played by DiCaprio, he is obviously we get a little bit more of his background through like his dreams, and like
Hmm.
he's starting to like
And visions.
have visions of things like from his past. And like, to be honest, I don't think that all of his visions are like true. I think that's like it's a mixture of like like his real life, and
Hmm.
like stuff that is being kind of what what he's dealing with. Because like dreams, like it's not always like it's not reality per se.
Right.
It's
Or it's not. Yeah.
it's
It's
that you're
not
dealing
linear
with
or narrative.
along with stuff that and it kind of
Mhm.
comes together in a dream, and it doesn't
Right.
make sense.
Yeah, and kind of
To be
like
honest,
Inception, how the Dom's uh, character tells Ariadne, oh, don't use elements from your real life.
right? This, there was a lot of times where I thought of like, wow, this is a lot like Inception right here,
Hmm.
and it's funny that they come out in the same freaking year. Yeah, it's like
Right.
there's so many elements of Inception here, and
Hmm.
I don't know if that was what Scorsese was thinking, but
Uh-huh.
like if he wasn't like that, that's a great coincidence.
Right. Okay.
Because even how it starts, how the movie starts, because like we're just like okay, because even how the movie starts, we're right on that like that barge, and that whole the ferry to the island, and uh in Inception, when he's talking with Ellen Page's character, that like you never know. Do you remember how he got here? It's like you never really remember when you're in a dream how you got there. It's like oh crap, we're in the dream, and in a way, I feel like that beginning of Shutter Island is a lot like that, where you're not really sure. Like, wait, are we in? Is this real or is this not? And a lot of his visions, we're not sure what's real or what's not, or like what is stuff that is kind of um, from his investigation, or from like what's kind of being implanted in his head. And we find out later that there are potential psychotropic drugs that are being given to him, without his knowledge.
Right. So, yeah, you definitely sense that there's a mystery, and yeah, like as Rob was saying before, during like a lot of the interviews, um, with patients or with the staff, everyone seems a little cagey, not really being forthcoming, or at least giving the full truth to Teddy Daniels.
Well, like I said, like
Um,
right after the first day that they were there, when he was in bed, like when they were in the cot with him and Chuck, it's like no one told us the truth, like from the get go. Like no
mhm,
one's, I haven't heard the truth once,
mhm,
and I think he's right. Um, there's something, some people are being, he felt like some of the patients were being coached.
mhm.
So they said the exact same thing, like nearly verbatim. As what was Ben Kingsley's character? It was Dr. Colley. Yeah, it was Dr. Colley.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, her like a few of them were like verbatim were just copying what Dr. Colley said.
Mhm.
Um, And there are so many of these like interactions with certain characters or things that are going on where it's like I really can't think of like an act or like a scene that is not important to like figuring out the movie because
Mhm.
there's so much going on scene by scene. I mean, I was telling you, Andy, that there are to me there were like about like three or four conversations that I feel like the movie really hinges on and like how
Mhm.
you actually interpret this movie.
Mhm.
Um, but as I mean, I literally watched this like three or four times just this past weekend,
Mhm.
and I can't think of a single moment that is not important for this film. And based, and how you interpret it is how you're going to interpret the movie.
Right. Um. What is? Yeah. Let's. I think let's get to like the the twist and the twist reveal and stuff, and so and kind of get that over with. So then we can also so we can get into the theory. So I think because I think
I
that
have, I have questions that I'm going to be asking
right,
you.
right, right. Yeah. So okay. So yes, if you didn't watch the movie, spoiler alerts. The twist reveal is that Teddy Daniels is actually a patient at Ashcliffe, um, and his real name is Andrew Latus, which we then come to learn because of kind of a clue that was left by the missing patient Rachel Solando. What in her room is like this cryptic note that said the law
Or
for
who is 67?
yeah, and who is 67. And the law of four turns out to be uh, an idea in psychology or dissociative
It's an
personalities
anagram.
where it's an anagram. You take like the name, Andrew Latus has 13 letters, and you have Teddy Daniel or Edward Daniels, which also has 13 letters, and it's the anagram of each other. Just like how his wife's name of Dolores, her
Is
maiden
your
name being Chanel, Dolores Chanel, is an anagram for Rachel Solanda. And the who is patient 67? It turns out to be him. He's the 67 patient at Ashcliffe. Um, and so in the final scene, like he's confronted with all this information, and he passes out. And then he wakes up, in Ward C, which is a converted Civil War bunker, and he's wearing the patient's, patient clothing. I guess it wasn't a gown. It looked more like prison regs.
prison grays like that.
Yeah,
That's
prison
what
grays.
prison is for.
Yeah, and so
Or
he
patient.
he finds it.
Sorry.
He wakes up, in one of the cells in Ward C, and the doctor's question is like, "Who are you?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm Andrew Latus." And it's like, "Oh, why are you here?" It's like, "Oh, in the spring of 53, my wife killed our children." 52. Yeah, in the spring of 52, my wife, killed our children, and then I ended up killing her, which is somewhat corroborated in kind of like a flashback memory that he has.
I argue that. I'm going to argue that I don't know that any of that is true.
Right. And so and so apparently, like, the whole ordeal over the past couple of days on the island, where it was a radical treatment, to play into the patient's delusions, to make them confront the actual reality of their circumstances. Um, and so apparently, the treatment was successful because he finally admits that he's Andrew Latus and not Teddy Daniels. That his wife killed their children, and in his grief and anger he kills his wife. Um, and then the final scene, or one of the final scenes, you know, Chuck is revealed to be his primary doctor at Ashcliffe, um, this entire time. And so they have like this exchange where it's like, oh, it's like, oh, what's the next move? And seemingly reverts back into the Teddy Daniel narrative, where he's not a patient, he's actually a marshal, and he's gonna blow the lid off this place for all the illegal experiments that they're doing on the patients and such. And so they have no choice but to lobotomize him. And just before he's taken to be lobotomized, he poses this question to Chuck, um, and he says, like, is it better to live as a monster or die as a good man? Kind
And
of.
when Chuck and when Mark Ruffalo's character, what was his name? It was
Dr. Sheehan.
Dr. Sheehan asks, is like, Teddy. He calls out to him like in his name. It's like, and he doesn't respond to him, which this obviously that's like, wait a second. It's maybe he was sacrificing himself, like,
right. Well, yeah, it's like it makes him wonder if he actually did uh, relapse or revert back to the Teddy Daniels narrative.
Yeah.
Because that seems like a pretty cogent question. It's like, do I live as the monster Andrew Laeddis who killed his wife, or who not only killed his wife but didn't do anything to help his wife, because it was revealed that she was experiencing some sort of mental break.
She had mental illness too.
Yeah, she had a mental illness too, and so it's like, oh, like, am I gonna be that monster, or will I choose to die as Teddy Daniels, the good man, the upstanding, U.S. Marshal, and then he's taken away to be lobotomized.
And that is the common understanding of what's going on in the movie, which is, I don't think it's wrong. I don't. But that is the only thing that people seem to be talking about. That's exactly what happened in the movie, and we are gonna like throw that under the bus and
we're gonna throw a monkey wrench into that thinking, and present to you a completely original theory, and this theory came to me after watching the movie back in 2010 and talking about it with a friend who also had seen it. And I told him, and he was of the impression that it was everything that the narrative put forward, that that Teddy Daniels was actually the patient Andrew Laeddis, and all of that was just a radical treatment to try and bring him back to reality. And I'm perfectly fine with accepting that explanation of the events of the movie.
I don't think it's wrong. I really don't.
Right?
I don't.
Yeah. I never got upset with my friends saying that, oh, you're a moron. That's not what the movie was about, or whatever, or But one thing did bother me, and that was the final shot of the movie. And the final shot of the movie is of the lighthouse. And in the movie, the lighthouse is described as a sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
And then it was also revealed as the site where the lobotomies are performed.
Right.
And then in the final confrontation, it's used as the confrontation point for Dr. Cawley and Teddy Daniels, where Dr. Cawley breaks it all down. It's like, oh, this is the rule of, this is the law of 4. This is you're the 67th patient here at Ashcliff. Your wife killed herself, or your wife drowned your kids, and you killed her. So there's the three instances, or 3 explanations of what the lighthouse was. But in the last scene of the movie, Teddy Daniels, or Andrew Laeddis, Leonardo DiCaprio's character is taken away to be lobotomized, and the final shot of the movie is of that lighthouse.
Oh shit, you're right.
And then you have like that kind of like ominous music come up, and it's like, why is the lighthouse the last shot of the movie? You know, if the if the lighthouse is just, you know, an old building that they use sometimes, like, you know, like in this case for, you know, Dr. Colley used it as the final confrontation site for, you know, Andrew Laetus's treatment, then why show you that?
Yeah, Scorsese did that for a reason.
Exactly, Scorsese did that reason. You know, if it's not, you know, if it's obviously not the sewage treatment plant, because, you know, we actually get to see inside the lighthouse, then
There's
it's,
nothing sewage treatment, nothing. There's nothing there for
yeah,
sewage.
there's no heavy equipment, there's no processing equipment. It's just, you know, it's just a lighthouse. Uh, but again, and then unless it's either just kind of like an office building, or it's the place where they can do the experiments, which was alluded to in. I don't think we talked about it in the straightforward review, but what is it? Teddy Daniels, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, has an encounter with uh, an alleged actual Rachel Solando, who goes on to explain that Ashcliffe has been experimenting on patients, and you know, and what is it? Basically turning, you know, regular people into basically like super soldiers or sleeper agents. Um, and it's in the lighthouse in which all of those experiments take place. Uh, so I started thinking, why did they show us? Why did Scorsese show the lighthouse at the very end? And so more and more, I started to think, like, what if, you know, all of, you know, I started to think as though, like, we're posing the question, what if Leo's character is being gaslit the entire time? You know, which then got me, and then which then got me to, you know, watch the movie again, but through the lens of him being uh, gaslit. You know, because, you know, the Teddy Daniel character, his original premise for going to Ashcliffe was to investigate uh, what was it? This other character, George Noyce. You know, because George Noyce was a, you know, I think, you know, maybe common for uh, kids at that time, but like kind of like a social revolutionary. You know, passing out socialist you know, materials and things like that. And so, you know, he was sent to Ashcliffe and supposedly been experimented on.
Well, like I said, I think you're the idea that Teddy Daniels is actually like he's not crazy, but he's being manipulated into be crazy and
Mm-hmm.
into thinking that he's crazy.
Right.
And right off the get go, because like I as I'm watching this movie, like with that kind of idea in mind, because first of all, no one's talking about like that theory at all that he's
Right.
maybe he's not crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but when he first meets Chuck on the barge, when
Mm-hmm.
he asks, it's like, "Oh, you're my new partner," like and he asks, "Oh, how you're from Portland, right?" It's like, "No, Seattle," and he's like, and he kind of gives him this look. I'm like, was he supposed to be meeting somebody else? Like, where he knew who he was supposed to be meeting, and he knew where they were coming from. And when he said like, "No, I'm from this particular office," I did a little bit of digging into like the Marshal Service,
Uh-huh.
and the Marshals there are 94 of them because there's one per federal courthouse, and
Ah.
so Seattle, so Seattle has one obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and Portland also has one too. Where is it?
Well,
Wash
basically a marshal for each state.
No, but there are more. But there's more than one federal courthouse per state. That's why there's 94.
Ah, okay.
So in the case of Seattle, or in the case of Washington, I think there are two, maybe three. But anyways, because he has that same actor, it's like, how, like, he's like, man, there's the interaction like, from him asking that question. It's like, oh, was he supposed to be meeting somebody else? And like that Dr. Sheehan, because there's a conversation later in the movie with him, him and Teddy Daniels in the mausoleum, talking about, like, when you were investigating them, were they investigating you? Which I think is super important. And the fact that, like, when you look back at like the beginning at the barge, that like where there that interaction between them is like, oh, did they kill the guy that he was supposed to be actually partnered with in this case?
Or at
Which
the
I
very least, yeah, or at the very least, like just they happen to intercept Teddy before the actual marshal
which I
from
totally think
Portland.
is plausible
Mm-hmm.
based off that. And, like, just from like my little bit of digging, like, because I was like, wait a second, this is important. Like, what, how did the marshals work? Like, how does it work? And because he says, like, do you know how few of us there are? And it's like, yeah, there's really not that many. There's 94, total in the country, and it's based off like one per federal courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And the like once they finally get to the island too, like you see like the guards are searching through like everywhere, like they're in like that tall grass. If Teddy Daniels is the the patient that they're looking for, what the fuck are they searching for?
Right. Well, like when he goes out with the guards for the search, they seem pretty lackadaisical and
No,
just
no, 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 no. I'm not talking about like when they're out and that. I'm talking about like before they're even on the island. Like as there is like just as they arrive,
uh huh.
there is a shot where they are. You see, like you kind of get like right as like they uh, unload from the ferry. There's a shot
Ah, okay.
of, like, all the guards searching through like the tall grass. Like they're doing a pretty thorough search, like what you would
Mm-hmm.
do if like you're looking for a convict that like is
Yeah,
fleeing.
on the run. Yeah.
Yeah, who the fuck are they looking for if he is the escaped patient? Because he's not even on the island yet.
Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. You're right. Yes. Okay. Now.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa. And and based off of like what like we that conversation at the beginning, does Teddy suspect Chuck right from the beginning? Like, because he's expecting like his partner to be from the Portland office, but he's like, no, I'm from Seattle. And like there's that like look that he gives him. It's like, I don't trust this guy right from the get go. And um is that why they have that conversation in the mausoleum? Why Chuck has that conversation, or Dr. Sheehan has that conversation with him in the mausoleum to kind of like, ease him a bit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Ingratiate himself.
So he's telling them what's happening, what these guys, what everyone's doing to him, but like, but he's telling the truth, but he's like making it like think that like maybe they're looking into you, and so he's taking away like kind of like the shifting the blame, so that he doesn't, so that Teddy does not suspect him.
Mm-hmm.
Super important discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of like the like when the one of the guards who is telling him like how Dr. Colley, like, oh, all these intelligence agencies are after, are wanting to talk to him and all this stuff like that. Like, okay, if that's the case, like, and he asked the question, like, why the hell do all these like, why does MI5 and the
Yeah.
CIA and all
CIA, FBI.
why would they want to talk to this guy? Because he's supposedly just helping insane patients.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they want to talk to this guy? So if that's that's kind, I think that's never addressed again, other than like if he's just like a crazy person, based off like what the movie's saying, that's a throwaway line. It doesn't mean anything. But I don't
Right.
think I think that is very important because if he's creating these ghosts, him and Max von Sydow's character,
Mhm.
that's yeah, of course intelligence agencies
Yeah,
want
like if Dr. Colley is able to create like super soldiers or sleeper agents, then of course these intelligence agencies would want to talk to him and probably utilize his techniques.
yeah. I mean, in like that conversation in the cave with like what the quote unquote real Rachel Solando, who
Mhm.
that is, dude, that is a super important piece of dialogue in the movie.
Mhm.
Um,
Right, because
who
she basically lays out like what they're doing at Ashcliff. Experimenting, poking and prodding in the brains, doing, transorbital lobotomies. And one video that I saw that analyzed Shutter Island, they said that this was just a hallucination reinforcing everything that Teddy already believed. But
no, no way. There's
but there's
no
no
way.
way because the information that this Rachel Solando gives is so like technically specific and and uh, what is it uh, and again because most illusions are based on things that we already know. There's no way that he could have known about like the technical specificity of how a transorbital lobotomy works.
Yeah,
And yeah, you could, and someone might say like, oh, well, they talked about it, briefly with Dr. Colley in the beginning. But it's like, yeah, he used the word transorbital lobotomy, but he never went into detail what it was. And in that,
yeah,
and even back then, in like the mid to late 50s, where this movie takes place, it's not as though that's really common knowledge.
no, it's not. And like I said, yeah, that conversation, he never talks specifics. He uses the term, sure, but like actually going into what details happens in those,
Hmm.
um, yeah, never talked about in the movie at all. Like it's up until that conversation. Like so, how she is to me, she is not a
Hallucination.
hallucination. Because the same thing. Because here's the reason why I say that. Because Dr. Sheehan is not a hallucination. We know that.
Hmm.
And the fact that they're saying that, like, when, towards the end of the movie, when, obviously, like, they're not going to let him off the island. He's
Hmm.
fucked. Um, they're not going to let Teddy off the island. And when because he's still thinking that Chuck, he believes that Dr. Sheehan is, made him believe that, like, oh, he's his friend. And when he was searching for him, couldn't find him, and he comes back to the facility. It's like, where I'm just looking for my partner so I can go. It's like, you came by yourself, Marshall. I was like, oh shit. That's where like he clearly did not come by himself. Like that is
Hmm.
Dr. Chuck slash Dr. Sheehan was not a phantom at all.
Right.
Like that
Yeah.
was not a
Yeah,
hallucination
just because
at
Chuck is
all.
actually Dr. Sheehan.
Yeah. That's where I'm like, oh shit, like yeah, they're really gaslighting this guy. Like this is everything that like to me that conversation in the cave with the real Rachel Solando,
Hmm.
who it's pretty much like laid out everything that was going to happen. That's exactly what happens in the movie. And I
Hmm.
think like once that conversation happens with Dr. Colley initially, before he ends up like then there's Max von Sydow's character, who he ends up like he was gonna get like a syringe by with like the whatever morphine or whatever thing that was gonna knock him out,
Yeah, a tranquilizer basically.
tranquilizer. Um, he's like, oh crap, and then like once he finally made it up to like the lighthouse where he thought that his partner was gonna be, I was like, oh man, like once he figured out, like once Dr. Sheehan like appeared, it was like you can see in his Teddy's face like, fuck, he knew that he lost,
Mm.
and Scorsese talks about this movie as being like very labyrinthine, like
Mm.
where which is based off of Greek mythology. For those of you that don't know, the labyrinth was part of Greek mythology where the Cyclops lived,
Mm.
and there's really like no escape. Or I'm sorry, not Cyclops, the Cyclops, but the
The
Minotaur.
Minotaur,
That's
yeah,
what
the
the Minotaur
Minotaur.
was. And he there's no escape,
Mm.
and that's exactly what Shutter Island is, because there really is no escape. And
Well, yeah,
one
because even like with that's the scenes where like they're infiltrating Ward C, and again Ward C is an old converted Civil War fort, and it's not like the other hospital buildings where it's like all nice and there's laminated floors and painted walls. It's rough in there, and
Yeah.
it's very labyrinth, like very much like a labyrinth where it's like it's dark. You can't you get turned around easily.
Oh yeah. Well, and I initially, like, when I was telling you how, like, with the movie is based on, it's your interpretation is off of these two conversations is how you're going to view the movie, because
Mm.
there's a conversation with George Noyce in Ward C, who is a patient,
Mm.
and then the real Rachel Solando. Um, Watching this for like the third and fourth time, I retract that, because everything that George Noyce says in Ward C is he is not like saying that, like, he's not calling this guy latest. He's blaming him for, like, because Teddy Daniels talks about George Noyce being like he was the one that like told him about everything that was going on in this facility,
Mm.
and he got out, and pretty much like he ended up, because this Shutter Island, the Ashcliff, turned him crazy because of all the experiments that were done on him. He
Mm.
ended up killing more people, and he's
Mm.
like, "No, I don't want to go back to Ashcliff." Like,
Yeah, basically, yeah. During his trial, he basically
I-
said, "I don't care where you send me, just don't send me back to that place."
exactly. And they probably stole him from Dedham Prison and brought him back for more experiments, or at least to
Mm.
just kind of shut him up about
Mm.
Ashcliff.
Mm.
And when he says that, like, no, you did this to me, this is your fault. And he was like, it wasn't talking about him like being Andrew Latis, like beating him up, but it's like his actions as a marshal, and kind of like getting the information out of him about Ashcliff.
Mm.
That is what he's talking about there, which was why he was brought back to Ashcliff.
Right.
And now at the end of the movie, Dr. Colley twists those words around, because
Right.
they are knowing exactly what's going on in the island. They are observing everything, and he twists those words, because the words that Dr. Colley gives at the end of the movie is not the same. Um, but it's kind of like what I liken it to, the snake in the garden at the Garden of Eden, where, like, the serpent twist. It sounds almost the same, but it's just twisted enough to
Mm.
make it like
Right.
sound
It's like,
different.
yeah. It's like, oh, did God really say that you die if you eat this?
Yeah, I mean it, and so that's what I see there.
Right.
And
Yeah. It's like basically like yeah. What Dr. Colley does is basically like move a comma.
right,
Um.
and like George Noyce and Rachel Solando are saying the same thing. They're pretty much confirming that, like, what's going on here is evil and it's real, that you're
Mhm.
not crazy, but they're going to turn you crazy.
Mhm. Right.
And
Because George Noyce says, oh, it's always like it's about you and it's about Latus. And basically what Doctor when Dr. Colley reads the transcript of their conversation, he just kind of just moves the comma where it's like it's about you and it's like you and Latus. It's about you and Latus.
yeah, and the other thing too is, like, every time, like, when we find out, like, that it's like you ate the food there, like you took aspirin, like you had, like, all, obviously you have this, he had that trauma, like he saw all those, he was one of the liberators of Dachau, which was
Mm.
horrible concentration camp, and
Mhm.
had some trauma with like his wife,
Mhm. Right,
and
and that's why, yeah, and that's why I don't necessarily think what we're presented, like how, because it does like the entire scene where like he gets home, he has a drink, he goes to see his wife, and she's like all wet, and then he asks about the children, and he sees the children floating in the lake next to the house, and then
see,
you
I
know,
I am see, I'm not sure like any of those visions really mean, because the only time that we really get them is after he's taken things that were not his.
right.
This is
Well,
where, like,
yeah, that's where I was gonna go because yeah, because you see like this vision of like what like really happened, but it's only the narrative that Dr. Colley has been reinforcing, especially at the scene at the lighthouse where he's like, here are your dead children. It's like, oh, you killed them, or like your wife killed them, and then you killed your wife in your grief and anger. But that's that's what he's asserting, not necessarily what might have happened.
and for 3 days they've been supposedly feeding, based off of like the character that we're talking about, they have been giving him like psychotropic drugs through the
Right,
aspirin, because the
which is
aspirin
supposedly which is supposedly the medication that he was already on, and like his like tremors and things like that were because of withdrawal because he hasn't been taking them. But it's like,
I believe it.
but if he has like especially like with through the aspirin been keeping it up like the past couple of days, then he shouldn't be having withdrawal, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
uh,
you can maybe make a case for like the cigarettes or whatever, or the hallucinogens. But if the medication that he was on, if he wasn't taking it even for if he wasn't taking it, I mean, let's say that it's a 1-to-1 thing where like the scene on the ferry is the same day that they took the ferry out to the middle of the ocean and then turned back around. Let's say the same day and that he had already taken his medication for that day. Then he hasn't been off the medication for very long, and like the shakiness of the hand might have been an adrenaline dump, like that him like knocking out that guard, or even from the cold when he swam the however many feet from the shore to the lighthouse because the tide had come
right,
in. So that could have just
right.
been because he was cold and he was and he was shaking.
Yeah,
But yeah, but like everything that that the revelation has only been through what the doctor or Dr. Colley has been asserting.
right. And like I don't believe a fucking word that guy says,
Mm-hmm.
him or Max von Sydow's character, like Dr. What the hell is his fucking name? I don't remember his character's name.
Dr. Jerem, Jeremiah Naring? Naring?
Nearing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't believe a word that any of those fucking guys say.
right. It was super sus when he just happened to have a tranquilizer in his coat and like ready to stab him.
Well, I mean, that whole conversation that they initially have, like on that first night
Mm-hmm.
in that those quarters, and like where he's the Max von Sydow's Doctor Nearing is testing him. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he's kind of like laughing at him. It's like, oh, wonderful defense mechanisms, Marshall.
Right.
And the other thing is like where when Teddy is having that conversation with Rachel Salondo in the cave, he also says like, oh, that's like the idea of defense mechanisms came up. I was like, oh, you have to connect those two conversations together, because that is because she's like, that's she makes a comment after that. I'm like, oh shit, these two conversations are very connected,
Mm-hmm.
because the idea of defense mechanisms, like, because she tells him, it's like, you're too smart for your own good. That's why they're coming after you.
Mm.
And
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
because like the way she broke it down, how like she used to be a doctor at Ashcliff until like she found out about the experiments, and then she was trying to be a whistleblower too, and then they kind of turned the system on her and made her seem crazy, even though she was making like reasonable objections. But it's like once they have you like declared as being crazy, you know, any statement you make to refute that just makes you sound more crazy.
Yeah. So I actually think that like so based off like because the hallucination the quote unquote dreams or hallucinations or visions that we're shown, I think the real story based off of our theory that he is not crazy. I think the real story is that yes, his wife or that their apartment was burned down, his wife died
Mm-hmm.
by Andrew Latis, who is the firebug. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's real.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as the that he did liberate Dachau, and like everything that we saw, like where he ended up having to shoot the guards, and with kind of like allowed that like commander to just like bleed out and just
Mm-hmm.
suffer. Totally believe that. I think that's real. I think that actually that was what happened. But as time went on, as they were because he had been investigating this place, they were feeding him psychotropic drugs because they had intercepted him on the ferry with Dr. Sheehan.
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, like and like they stole, pretty much like, oh yeah, those government employees, they'll they'll rob you blind, and so they took everything out of his pockets, and started like, oh, now it's our stuff that we're gonna give him, like kind of being friendly about it,
Mm-hmm.
and that was sort of like where his headaches began.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept feeding him different the story of like the investigation, like, oh, this person, like they were showing him photos and like telling him the story of these things. And as those drugs took effect, he was having visions of what they were telling him. And because of like the hallucinations that he was being given, plus the stories that he was the lies that he was being fed, that was starting to infect the visions that we saw in his, like when he would sleep or like just like as he was going about. And he really in a very crazy way, yeah, he was being gaslit from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, and one thing I want to bring up. Well, a lot more things, but there's one thing really stick out to me. It's like when after they went into Ward C, and then they go and like they kind of uh, what is it? Enter in that like meeting that they have with like Dr.
Oh yeah,
Colley.
yeah. Talk about that because I have some comments on that too.
Yeah, and that one, when he, when the concept of the Law of Four came up, that one guy, he's like, oh, I love that, I love the Law of Four.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought too. I was like that.
And it wasn't, and it didn't sound, that didn't sound like he like, for some reason he was fascinated with that concept of how like people are able to take the anagram, and take their name or whatever, and like anagram it. But it sounded more like, I don't know, maybe it's the way I interpret it, but it sounded like he was talking about a strategy for confusing somebody.
Yeah, we're coming into it mid conversation, mid
Mm-hmm.
meeting, so we
Mm-hmm.
don't know like.
Right. No, but yeah, but even though like Teddy Daniels, he kind of interrupts the meeting, and he mentions like the Law of Four, and then that one guy, that one board member or whatever is like, oh, I love the Law of Four, but it
Right.
didn't sound like, yeah, but again, to me, it didn't sound like he was talking about some sort of uh, psychological like uh, condition or whatever. It's not it. Again, it might be my interpretation of it, but it sounded like it was more of like he enjoyed that specific like tactic.
Yeah, no, see here's where like here's my thought on this because
Mm-hmm.
I thought the same thing too. I was like, dude, why is that guy like saying I love the Law of Four?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
like specifically, like I love the Law of Four. Why didn't he say? Why didn't he could have said like, oh, Law of Four, fascinating.
so the law of four to me means absolutely shit. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
The thing is because they were if our theory is true, they were investigating Teddy Daniels from like right from the get go. Like once they got like word that he was coming into them.
Mhm.
And the anagrams, because they were researching about him. I think the anagrams were like coincidence, and they
I'm,
absconded Rachel. The Rachel Solano had like kind of escaped, but
mhm.
they kind of like, oh shit, like that to me, that's who they were really searching for at the beginning of the movie. Like,
Mhm.
where it wasn't Teddy Daniels that they were searching for, because he's not lost. He's not a patient.
Right.
You have Rachel, the psychiatrist that had run away. That's who
Mhm.
they were really searching for.
Right.
And so they had this other patient who actually had, because the Rachel Solano that we meet in the cave didn't have any kids. There was nobody. So they just made
Mhm.
her look crazy because she had some other trauma in her life or whatever.
Mhm.
But then the fake Rachel Solano, which she wasn't missing. They took her out of that room, and they planted that paper there, the rule of four, and
Yeah.
who is 67, because it's like they had this plot right from the get go to begin with, because they called for the marshals, saying, "Oh, we have a missing escaped patient that we need to search for," and they knew that Teddy Daniels was looking into them, and that's why like they knew that this would bring him here.
Right. And if like they're as connected in the government as that as we're led to believe, then of course Dr. Colley or one of the board members could be like, hey, could you get yeah, we need to get this guy here. Could you make sure that it's him that comes?
Yeah, because like they had this whole story, like, oh, like the Law of Four to me was coincidence. Like, that was all like made up. They figured something.
This is the gravy that I was talking about that I wanted. Um, I was curious about the names, right? Like Andrew Latus, and I plugged in Latus, and I looked up the meaning, and there actually is a meaning, and it's Latin, and get this, it's to disfigure, defile, make unsightly, make ugly. And what are they doing to Teddy Daniels but
Oh,
making him
shit.
crazy, disfigure, make him
Oh,
unsightly,
oh my God. Yeah.
right? Isn't that such great gravy?
Oh my God. That is, dude. I'm telling you, like, we started with like it's plausible.
Uh-huh.
I am convinced that we are right, dude. Are
Yeah,
you
no, I was
serious?
like, yeah, I know, I so wanted to tell you this, earlier when we were
No,
texting.
I didn't. Dude. Holy shit, dude. That is fantastic. What? Oh, I'm not just. This isn't plausible. This is exactly that
this
was
is
not
this is the
a
real story
bro.
of Shutter Island.
Scorsese did this on purpose. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I mean, like coming up with the name Latus, like, yeah, I mean, it's a stretch because it's like it's a Latin word like ladies, but that has to be purposeful. Is it's not as though Scorsese's like, oh, he just came up one day with a last name, like, oh, Latus, yeah, Latus, that sounds good.
Holy shit.
Yeah, again, Latus is Greek for disfigure, defile, make unsightly, make ugly.
And like I said, that was done on purpose, but like based off the story of the movie, I think this is all just like it's coincidence that like these anagrams exist. Like
Mm-hmm.
they made up the Law of Four.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
That whole like that note.
Yeah,
The Law
again,
of Four.
that's why it was weird that board member said like, "Oh, I love the Law of Four," instead of saying, "Oh, the Law of Four, so fascinating."
Yeah, like that is. I was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh my, they're doing something here. Like that's, oh my gosh, and
Mm-hmm.
that whole like your revelation there,
Mm-hmm.
dude. I am convinced that we are right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more because it's like their entire plan hinged on like some really crazy variables, like the participation of the patients. When they're like fake interviewing with Daniels and and even the ferry boat captain, like his performance, making it seem like they came from the mainland all the way out to the island, and you know, and even the storm itself, like they were really gonna put on this experimental treatment during a storm. And again, we talked about this a little bit prior, but it's like it's not as though meteorology wasn't a thing back then. There are people who track weather patterns, and
Oh,
and I'm sure, and there are weather reports in newspapers or or on the radio, during specifically for that time. So like they would have known a storm was coming, but then they still went ahead and did did this experimental treatment for him.
they fake the storm. Like what are they? The Jews.
Yeah, you stole my joke, bitch.
I had to. You threw that latest gauntlet down. I'm like,
Okay, yeah, all right.
but
I
no,
know, I couldn't be the only one, ladling out the gravy, right?
but yeah, no. The idea that like they can't predict the weather. Like who know? Like
Exactly.
and so, but they put the way that it was presented at the end is like I've heard this story about like the storm and all this stuff. It's like so you that storm is all fake bullshit.
Right, exactly. I mean, and it's like who would risk that type of variable, on experimental treatment. They would, if you actually wanted to be able to control things, you'd wait for better weather.
Well, no. The implication that Dr. Colley says to Teddy is that like all I've heard about is like these fake stories about like this investigation and the storm and all that. Like, so he was saying that like Teddy had faked the storm. It's like, no, he did not fake that storm. I'm sorry,
Wait,
because then
he
why?
wait. Dr. Colley specifically said about fake storms.
Yeah, that Teddy was the one that made the story about the storm. It's like bullshit because you have all these guys that are like, picking up all the debris and shit that like cause like the electrical fence to be destroyed and all this stuff is like, but no, he's putting that on Teddy and saying that he was the one that had been like talking about like the storm and like that he had made it up.
Wait, remind me again. When was this?
This is in the lighthouse, like when
Oh, this is in the lighthouse. Huh. Although
I was
it
like,
does seem pretty crazy because everything gets cleaned up and pretty much put back to normal pretty quickly.
not no, but see, I no, I don't think it does because how does that electrical fence get destroyed? How does like there we see all the orderlies and everything picking up all the debris from it. Like it's
Hmm.
I mean there's I don't know how many orderlies there are or whatever, but like there's a lot of folks cleaning that stuff up. Like it probably took about a day, but
True.
like
Okay.
that
Yeah, yeah,
storm was
yeah.
I'm sorry, that's all bullshit. Like that's where I call bullshit on Dr. Colley there because that is from what we there's nothing about like it being a fake storm.
Mm-hmm. Right, and yeah, and again, my contention is that if this was just some experimental treatment to help Teddy snap back to reality, why would they do it in a time where with such a crazy variable as a storm?
Exactly. That's why like I really as when you threw that like latest thing down, oh dude, like I'm not just saying it's plausible. This is the real
This is the real story.
this is the real story. And the fact that no one is talking about it at all. Like, I mean, it's not, they're not even saying like, "Oh, this is plausible that maybe he's not crazy." But
Right.
I see this like you this and Gaslight are so comparable. It is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I did have it queued up, ready to go, but then I got distracted. But yeah, I definitely want to watch Gaslight now.
Dude, it is so good. You're gonna love it. It's and I have watched it, and I'm saying like, yes, this is these two movies are very comparable
Okay.
in a lot of ways. This is kind of like accentuated to like the 10th degree, but like it is the two movies are very comparable. And I see like a lot of Inception in here too because they're in a lot of ways they are implanting these ideas into Teddy Daniels' head through the
Right.
psychedelic
Yeah.
drugs.
hmm Right. Yeah, and the constant like conditioning, yeah, because it's more than once that Teddy like tries to confirm that Chuck was from Portland, but he keeps saying like, oh no, Seattle. So you know, so the whole Portland, yes, the whole Portland thing could.
So, because that was done at the beginning of the movie, and there's definitely a lot of like where he does not trust him.
hmm
Then he starts to trust him again at like the mausoleum, like when he
Yeah,
pretty much.
when they got caught in the storm. Yeah.
But then there's a time like where he's trying to get to the lighthouse, and Chuck does not want to go, or
Dr.
Doctor Sheehan
Sheehan.
does not want to go,
hmm
obviously because things are going to be revealed there that would be like, oh shit, like no, I can't go there.
hmm
So it's like he kind of like is
He
hesitant,
disappears himself.
and that's where like has that question. It's like oh, I guess you're Portland guys don't want to do that or whatever the line was. He's like, no, I'm from Seattle. It's like, yeah, I'm going alone. It's like, and he doesn't trust him again.
Right. Yeah, and what was it? Someone said like when Chuck brought in the what was it the input form, that the paperwork you do when you are admitted, from Andrew Latus, and it's like say, hey, you got to look at this, you got to look at this. This is what you're looking for, right? To see if Latus was here. Um, but he doesn't, and one of the analysis videos that I saw, the presenter said that it's because if he looked at that, then it would have shown that he was latest the entire time, and it would have broken the
I don't.
reality. Yeah, but I don't think that it's either. It's at that time that he wasn't fully trusting Chuck.
Well, because he did have that sheet, he put it in his pocket, but like we never actually see him pull it back out. And the
hmm
fact that Dr. Colley had it like oh, here's that input sheet. It's like it's a he says it's a copy, but I don't think so. And that's where I think he knows like fuck, I'm screwed here. Like, and the other thing now that we're talking about this too, like with the whole idea of like because the Marshal Service is actually very small, right?
hmm
So you have like these there's like one marshal per federal court.
Yeah,
So
and their responsibilities are
so,
very like narrow, even though
so
they are law enforcement.
yeah. So here's the thing. Yes, Dr. Sheehan is going by the name that like the guy that he was supposed to meet. I think Teddy knew the name that he was supposed to meet, but he was suspecting like, oh, he's from Portland because there's only like one per like federal court, right? But when he said no, I'm from Seattle, because maybe they got maybe that was like the chink in the armor was like how small we are. Oh, it's like that. I think that's like the moment where he's like he knew something was wrong. He didn't trust the guy from the very beginning.
Mm.
There's something there. I know. I don't know if that is obviously like there's not a lot of people talking about that. They're probably like, oh, that's just kind of like a throwaway detail. Like no, because it's repeated twice in the movie, so it's not a throwaway.
Right.
That is a
Absolutely.
decision by Scorsese,
hmm
and that's where I'm like, okay, this is not this is our it's not just plausible. We are right. I'm sorry. We're right. Having this discussion with you, like I am convinced more than ever that we were right.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, because again, me being tending to want to be more diplomatic, I didn't really push back on my friends. I was like, and so I just asserted, hey, this is just one theory, and
And
because he at the
I would
time he was very adamant that like what was presented or like how everyone else has been kind of analyzing Shutter Island is the correct interpretation. So I was like, okay, I'm just saying that it's just it's just one interpretation that could be plausible, but yeah, after diving in more and more into it, and also finding my revelation of latest being Greek for to make unsightly to basically break down somebody, which they were doing to Teddy Daniels.
100%. And he knew, like I said, once Doctor Sheehan revealed himself, like who he was. He knew he was fucked.
Yeah.
He knew he was never like the labyrinth. He was never getting out. There was no
Mhm.
way. And so that's where the idea where he kind of just like started to play along somewhat.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that last statement of like should I uh
Yeah. Is it better to live as a monster or die as a good man?
yeah, exactly. And I think that was like just him like sacrificing himself.
Yeah. Because because I think Teddy Daniels is a man of honor, and it's like I rather symbolically die through this lobotomy than to go along with the lie of being this monster that treated his wife bad and killed her and didn't look after her.
And like killed the kid, had this wife who killed kids that he didn't have, because
Hmm.
that's the thing too, like he didn't actually have kids with his wife because she was killed beforehand. Like those were like memories that were implanted into him
Right,
through
exactly. Like the
college.
idea of having children all came from Collie.
Yeah, was he a drunk? Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And I think once his wife died, he stopped drinking
Right, and
because
even before, like when they have that meeting with at Collie's house,
he's like,
with
I'll have soda and water.
yeah with Max von Sydow's character, it's like yeah, he even admitted that he was a drinker.
Yeah, but like I think because of that it's like, oh, I thought you were a man who would imbibe in alcohol. It's like I think like once his wife died, he stopped drinking because the initial vision that we have like of him and his wife, just like why like I found this bottle, like are you drinking, like why are you drinking so much? And it's because yeah, like what happened to him in World War II. He
Uh-huh.
had battle fatigue, like he or PTSD, like, or is what we would call it today. Like he was drinking to get rid of the visions that he had
Yeah,
of like all
yeah,
the death and
yeah. He was
murder.
self-medicating.
Yeah, exactly. And when she died, he stopped.
Hmm.
I guarantee it. And but like that's also not a throwaway. That's important too.
Hmm.
So, man, this movie, like I knew it was great when I watched it first, and when I watched it opening day in theaters.
Uh-huh.
It has become even more awesome as we have started to do this review. I love this. If I could give it 10 stars, I would. Like it's like it was so good.
Yeah.
And the fact I'm surprised that like especially if you listen to what Scorsese has to say about this film, it is
Mhm.
not a cut and dry vision of the movie. Yes, we are led the if you are just kind of like following along with like what the other characters are saying,
Mhm.
sure, like Teddy Daniels, he's not Teddy Daniels, he's Andrew Latis. He killed his wife after she murdered their children. But that is, to me, like that is the red herring.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the real story. That is what everyone is led to believe. That's a direction that is the fake direction that they're being sent. But this movie is more deep than that. There's
Mm-hmm.
much more going on, and if you actually look at it, really dive deep into this movie, which I'm not sure a lot of people have done, because there's nothing on Reddit, there's nothing on any article I've read, and I read a lot. There's a lot of interviews that people like breaking down this movie, like through YouTube, which I don't really like to do before I watch a movie,
Mm-hmm.
because I like to have our own kind of breakdown of it. But
Mm-hmm.
no one, literally no one, has our theory. Which, to be honest, now that we're working through this together,
Mm-hmm.
we're right, dude. We are right.
I'm actually, I'm coming around to that. It's, you know,
I am going to start convincing people like you need to rewatch Shutter Island and you need to
mm-hmm.
look at this correctly. Right? I mean, really watch this movie because this is whoa, wow. I mean, when you really like when we doing this, like this opened up a whole new ball game with Shutter Island.
Yeah.
It's much more terrifying that way.
Yeah, exactly. Because now it's like, oh man, there's like these shady people who are potentially supplying the intelligence agencies with like sleeper agents or super soldiers that can do horrendous and monstrous things without feeling any kind of remorse or guilt,
Or whatever.
yeah, pain or whatever.
Oh, scary. It's a scary movie.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you that I'm always right.
No, see, that's the thing. Like when I totally agree with you. Like I didn't when you finally mentioned it, it's like, dude, I that makes so much sense. Because when I first watched it, like everyone's like, oh, it was this huge twist. Like, he was investigating them, but he was actually like the guy that was like he was a patient, a mental patient, all this stuff was like, and even back then I was like, no, there's something more to this than that. Like this is none of this stuff was done on like was done just for like throwaway stuff.
Yeah,
And,
I
but I
mean,
never.
yeah, because like everything, yeah, because you have to take everything that they show you is for a reason, not simply for aesthetics or to or as filler, especially as an artist such as Scorsese. You have to go in there thinking that everything that is shown to you, everything that's privileged, and I'm in the way that I mean that is everything that's being shown to you is for a reason.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I was never really. I was like, yes, that's where I'm being led, but I don't think that that's the full story. But for whatever reason, I never revisited the film until you brought up like, let's review Shutter Island for Thriller Month.
Mm-hmm.
And once you kind of told me your idea, it was like that was kind of like, dude, that's kind of the missing piece of the puzzle for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched it again, it was like, fuck, dude, that's exactly what's happening. And before I was like, no, that's just like, that it's very plausible. I'm not saying that the other idea is wrong, but like I think the fact that ours isn't being talked about is a bad thing. But through our discussion, I'm like, dude, no, we're right. I'm sorry. We are this is the right interpretation. I think this is what Scorsese was going for. He's leading people in this direction, but leaving a lot of the evidence to show that that's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And he's giving us like our own labyrinth as cinephiles to really like figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because again, it was literally the last scene of the movie that just like kind of acted like you know the doorstop to like for me to like close it off like entirely, like
I
be
didn't,
done with it.
I didn't even catch that, dude. Like that's so. I'm gonna look at that last scene like after we're done, and
Uh-huh.
just to kind of like
Yeah,
see
just watch
it.
that last. Yeah, just watch that last scene, like that final exchange between Sheehan and Teddy, and then watch as he's being led away. And another interesting thing is, why is the orderly carrying the instruments, like the ice pick thing?
Yeah,
It's like, wouldn't and supposedly if the lighthouse is not where they do the experiments and it's somewhere on the grounds, why would the orderlies be carrying the instruments?
why exactly? Wouldn't they just be carrying him away off somewhere?
Yeah, yeah, just like kind of like flanking him on either side and just like calmly walking him to the operating room. But again, like, it's purposeful. The, the,
It's
the last
motion.
shot the last shot of the movie is the lighthouse. And
Yeah.
the lighthouse is where the Rachel Solando in the caves said that that's where all the experiments are taking place.
Let me ask like one more question too, because there's that whole um, after he gets after he wakes up after like the cave scene and
Mm.
climbs back up and he's kind of like wandering through that like that like I guess the abandoned neighborhood on that island because there's all those boarded up
Right.
houses
Mm-hmm.
and the warden of the island played by the guy who was Buffalo Bill in Silence
Yeah,
of the
yeah, that's right. That's right.
who's a great
Yeah.
actor. I
Would you
loved him.
fuck me? I fuck me.
Yeah. Dude, I kept thinking that every time like he was talking in this movie. Um,
Yeah.
but that whole interaction, what was that? What was that interaction about? Like talking about like how you're a violent guy. But God gave us violence and all this stuff. Like what the
Hmm.
fuck was that conversation about?
I want to say that was the warden's attempt to see if he can like if they can get him to come on board.
With what they're doing on the island?
Yeah, or like become a part of it, or even maybe like sizing him up to maybe even take over as a warden. Because because he was an older guy, so maybe he was looking to retire, and it's like who could like
Mm.
replace me. So maybe he was like trying to find because if this is a really if and again like we're now operating on the assumption that that this was like a secret place where they did experiments and things like that. um, maybe they're looking for people that they could like trust. And so since like Teddy pegged him for ex-military, and because they have if they're as well connected as we think they are, you know uh, the doctor could have done a probably did do a background check on his qualifications, like, oh, he was a military man, he was a marshal, or he is a marshal, so maybe he can take over as warden. So maybe it was like they were seeing if he could be bought off in a way to keep his mouth shut and then become part of what's going on the island.
Oh, fascinating, man. That's this movie's great. Like if you've not seen Shutter Island, you need to watch it like immediately.
Yes, absolutely.
God, this movie's
What
so good.
what a great! I mean, I can't promise that the other reviews are going to be this lively and entertaining, but
Well,
what a way to start, right?
are
What a
gonna
way to
end
start off the month.
we are gonna end the month with Memento, which I guarantee is gonna be a fascinating discussion as well.
Oh, of course, yes. Of course.
Um, and I
What
think
like
the other movies that I'm planning on us doing are gonna be really fantastic because we're gonna
mm-hmm,
get into. I think some of them I've seen with you, Andy.
mm-hmm.
But like, because we're looking at doing. I think unless things change, if you change your mind on it, but like I'm looking at us doing like the original Cape Fear, with Robert
Oh yeah,
Mitchum and
yeah. We both
Gregory
watched that
Peck, which
together.
is there's a lot of cinematic archaeology there.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get into that. Night of the Hunter, also starring Robert Mitchum.
Oh yeah, yeah. We watched that too.
Oh, so good. And then Bone Tomahawk,
Oh, that
which
I haven't seen, but you keep recommending it to me, so I'm
dude,
looking forward to that.
yeah, it is all those movies are really great, and I think they have their own their merits.
Hmm.
Um, but then Memento is just like it's like Shutter Island. There's so much there, and that to me was. I mean, I've always been like I've watched movies like pretty much my whole life, but that was a movie where I was like, "Whoa, I didn't know movies could be like this,"
Mm.
and that's
Mm.
really I think that really started getting me into watching a lot of movies.
Mm.
Because for a long time that was like my all-time favorite movie.
Mm.
Then I finally saw Casablanca. I was like, oh, that's this, ah,
All right. Okay. Well, yeah, that's our review of Shutter Island and our unique theory. The only ones talking about this theory.
we're the only ones talking about this. So fucking like, uh, uh, yeah, we're unique, dude. I hope that everyone's eventually comes to this review
Hmm.
that that if they want a different view of Shutter Island that no one else is talking about,
Hmm.
talk to us, dude. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna break it down in a way. We broke it down in a way that no one else is.
Yeah, I think I know I haven't done this in a while, and I said I was gonna go back and I was gonna clip at least all the movie reviews, but for sure this one I'm gonna clip the review for this one and the theory, and I'm
Oh
gonna post that
yes,
separately because I think this really needs to be shared, and people really need to like consider this as the actual storyline of the movie, not what people commonly accept as the storyline.
yeah.
All right, let's give our ratings and let's wrap it up. Um, Robert,
Well,
you want
I think I've already kind of like leaked mine. It's a 5 star. Like
to?
if I could give it 10 stars, I would.
Right.
Um, so this movie is so good. Uh, this is Caprio at his best. Hell, I actually like. I think this is probably Mark Ruffalo's best movie too. Like, I mean, he's been in some good
Mm.
ones. Like
Hmm.
Zodiac is really good. I mean, obviously, I love him as the Hulk, but like this to me is like his best performance, easily.
Mm.
Ben Kingsley also just great. Max von Sydow, who unfortunately just passed away, who
Mm.
is also a great actor.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Hell, we even get Buffalo Bill in here, and the guy that the other guard that we find, like another great character actor. I forget his name, but he was in
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Let me see.
the Drew Carey show as his
Yeah,
brother.
John Carroll Lynch.
Yeah,
He played Drew's brother.
also in Zodiac. He was also in Zodiac
Oh
too.
yeah,
He
yeah, yeah. He's a prolific character actor,
he is a brilliant actor who doesn't get like a lot of like he's not a lead actor, but like he gets.
and and he was the barber in Gran Torino.
That's right. Yes, he is. He's dude, great character actor.
Hmm.
Um, so well cast movie. The story is so complex. It's very layered. You're
Hmm.
led in one direction, which obviously we see that from all the reviews and comments and Reddit posts.
Hmm.
We're being led in one direction, but in reality, there's so much more going on. And I think that we present a not only just an alternate theory, but I think that's really what Scorsese was going for. And I think we're right. Um,
Yes.
5 stars. Brilliant
Five
movie.
stars.
I will be watching this again very soon. I love this movie. It might. I'm not sure it sneaks into my top 10, but it's very close.
All right, sure. Yeah. No surprise with me, but 5 stars as well. I think if I didn't have if I didn't come up with a theory, the alternate theory, which I think is actually the true story of Shutter Island, I probably would have given this a 4, maybe 4.5.
Still a great movie.
But still a great movie. Yeah, don't get me wrong, still great. Even if it was just the standard interpretation where it's like, oh, Leo was the mental patient the entire time. still a great reveal, still a great twist. You
Oh
know.
yeah, great twist.
Yeah, and if everything was still the same, like still the great performances, still the same great cast, then yeah, 4.5 easy. But because of our theory, which I think is the true interpretation of Shutter Island, definitely a 5.
Dude, great recommendation, man.
Mhm.
You were super excited about doing this review.
Yeah, I
And
mean, cause knowing you, I knew that you would see the things that I saw and be like, and start like kind of digging. Whereas everyone else is like, oh no, what are you talking about? It's yeah, Leo's a crazy person the entire time. It's like,
yeah, like because even like I've been saying, like when I first watched it, I was like, I know that's where we're being led, but something doesn't feel right. And when you said it's like, think about him being gaslit, I was like, once you said that, I was like, dude, Gaslight, Shutter Island, it makes total sense. And that's
yeah,
where I'm like, I really started to really pay attention to like literally every piece of dialogue and parts of the movie. I'm like, oh shit. Wow.
yeah.
What
Oh,
a
but yeah, like when you said like at the end when when he's being let off and Dr. Sheehan calls him Teddy. I think that's also a really good reveal too because like why didn't he go call him Andrew?
well, because he kind of play the idea is because they're essentially forcing him to like buy into his like that he's the monster Andrew Latis,
Uh-huh.
and he knows that like he's fucked. He's gonna die either. He's either gonna stay on that island as a monster, to
Hmm.
live as a monster, or die as a hero.
Hmm.
And so he goes back into being like, oh, he's like, so he starts like, just kind of be himself again.
Hmm.
And so like, they say like, oh, he's not gonna play along. And so when
I don't know, but it seemed it's I don't know, but it seemed like there was more like tragedy in his when he's calling out, it's like, oh, Teddy. Or
I don't think Dr. Sheehan is a evil person, but
mm.
he is. I think like everyone that's on that island,
I
like
just
they.
think I just right. Well, yeah, but I just think Dr. Sheen was more surprised because and I think like he kind of like let his guard down a little bit, but also like he was like acknowledging, he's like, oh you're Teddy Daniels.
Yeah, I definitely see that.
But yeah, that was our review for Shutter Island. Both Robert and I gave this a 5, and yes, watch this movie as though Leo's character is being gaslit, and
What a roller
it's
coaster!
so much more interesting. It's so much more
Way
interesting.
more interesting. Way more interesting.
Hmm.
What a movie.
What a movie! All right, folks, that brings us to the end of the stream tonight. I hope you had a good time. I know Rob had a really good time. I had
Dude,
a really great time
I
tonight
nerded out
too.
a lot. I didn't have the Eric manifesto, but like
Yeah, no, dude, I want to talk. I want to talk about this movie with him, though.
I definitely want to talk. We'll have like that would be a great podcast, just breaking down Shutter Island
Hmm.
scene by scene.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, just a little bit of extra gravy. Um, but I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but because Andrew's my name too. That's actually Greek for man. So if you put Andrew Latus together, is unsightly man.
Oh shit! That
Yeah.
that's not just a throwaway.
No, it's not. It's not a throwaway. It's not random. He didn't pick. Yeah, Scorsese didn't pick that name. Those names at random. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's intentional.
it's so good. This movie's
Although,
so good.
although hold on, because I know Daniel means God is my judge.
Yeah.
So hold on, let me look up the name Edward real fast. It's an Old English name, which in its components, which comes from the Old English Eodward, meaning prosperity, fortune, and guard.
Wow.
So yeah. God judges my guard and fortune.
I can see that.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, yeah, but that does it for us tonight. I hope you enjoyed it yourselves. Don't forget to check out the library of other content that we have. The Circle of Jerks main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Rob's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts, Twitter and Letterboxd at PodcastCOJ, and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, we thank you for joining us. Come back next week and we'll do it all over again.